That's right. It's the inevitably nonsensical, yet hopefully enjoyable, After Movie Diner Season 2. Like all good sequels, in Season 2, you can expect us to ramp up the action, expletives, gratuitous mentions of James Spader's inner thigh, and of course, the gore. That's right, we're going to be rupturing earlobes, nastily prodding dangly viscera, pulling kneecaps off and splashing about in the goopy bits. Oh, I'm sorry, I got carried away. Calm yourself, Leanna. If you enjoy the show and have pursued the recommended treatment from your medical providers, why not support the show on Patreon over at patreon.com/aftermoviediner. Rate and review the show wherever podcasts are found, and rating and reviewing is possible. Even a 1-star review provides useful insights on exactly the sort of petty-minded and wretched individual who negatively reviews free entertainment they do not need to be consuming. So, without further dribbling, please put down your lemon meringues, silence your bowels, and rub 2 nearby dogs together for the one, the only, Jon Cross.
All right. Are you ready, sir? Are you all good to go?
I am good to go.
All right. I'm going to have one more crisp.
Okay, gotcha.
I just want a little salty. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Get them salty snacks in. Till they tell you can't have no more, get them in, man, you know.
Get it in. That's what I say. Gary, I'm with you. All right. Are we gonna do this?
I am ready, man. Ready to go into the diner here, brother.
I'm so excited. Okay, here we go. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the After Movie Diner. And as you can remember, one of the things that we were trying to do was to watch a movie from someone, either an actor or a director or someone like that, who I really like but I haven't seen yet. A movie I really should have seen but haven't seen. And then the other thing we were doing was dipping into weird and wonderful VHS. Well, we are now going to start a whole new series that is sort of adjacent to that, but also very much connected to that. And that is a series of films looking at the bizarre B-movie and gonzo independent film career of Mr. Michael Paré, who is an actor who I like and have enjoyed since he gave us his Eddie Wilson. But also, we will be looking at VHS, weird oddities on VHS. The exciting thing is, ladies and gentlemen, is that we are doing this in cahoots. Cahoots. I'm saying the word cahoots because that's what's happening here. In cahoots with one of the greatest podcasts of all time. That is the Cinema Beef podcast as part of the Butcher Shop series of podcasts. And we are exceptionally thankful, happy, lucky, just infused with wonderful feelings to have not only as a guest on the show, but someone who we consider a brother from another mother. It is the bearded brethren himself, the wonderful, the splentastic Gary Hill of the Cinema Beef podcast. Gary, hello, sir.
Hello, sir. The key word there is hoot, because I'd say the films we started with for this project, they're quite the hoot, as they say. And I appreciate John because he keeps it real with the beard. I shave mine off for vanity and for the fact that I like to eat flapjacks on occasion. And, you know, it's syrup gets in the beard, y'all, and it's a struggle.
But that is one of the beautiful things about maintaining a beard, is the syrup content of that beard. Really, if you have a beard worthy of note, it should be a beard that has a high syrup content. I, for example, prior to us talking, have been consuming Ghirardelli or Ghirardelli, I don't know how people say it, but Ghirardelli or Ghirardelli squares that are white chocolate with caramel in the middle of them. And I know for a fact that some of my beard hairs no doubt contain caramel, which is where we want to live, isn't it, Gary? Isn't that the world we want to live in?
Well, if you have a sweet tooth or your lover has a sweet tooth, they got something to go back for later on. So, just to maybe have a little taste of that beard and, it's salty caramel goodness.
Yeah. I listen, Gary, I see no bad in it. Do you know what I mean? There's never been a historical documentary or a true crime documentary made about someone who had just slightly too much syrup in their beard. That was never a thing,
It's like, hey, I went to a barbecue. You want to taste the ribs? Just to forge in my beard for once in a while, and
right.
Just prove that you love me to that level. Come on now.
Now I know that people might point to facial hair being a distinguisher in the psychotic, Charles Manson, Adolf Hitler, for two examples, but I say that no, Gary and I reclaim the facial hair as a beacon of positivity in the world. Wouldn't you say, Gary?
Yeah, we're not hipsters about it either. We don't like twirl our mustaches like Snively Whiplash from the cartoons. And,
no.
I've seen some wild stuff. And, when we wear
ladies and germs, make no mistake that Gary Hill has seen some wild stuff. That's a fact right now.
It usually involves whiskey and bad decisions, but I don't drink whiskey anymore. So it's just bad. It's just organic bad decisions. But,
it's sober bad decisions, and those are the worst kind. But no, Gary, what I'm saying is, in general, while facial hair has been combined in some people's minds with evilness, the devil having his little pointy goatee, Rasputin, the mad monk. There are certain examples of facial hair denoting insanity. Also on TV, I don't know if you've noticed this, Gary, but on TV there is a trend, which most strikingly happened in 24 with Kiefer Sutherland. But there is a trend that depending on how anguished you are as a character, it is denoted by the length and patchiness of your beard. And I think John Wick also continues this trend. Would you agree?
Well, you need I think to pull that off, John Wick does it okay, but you need a big old what would look like a deteriorated sweater maybe with a hole in it and big floop sticking out to really pull off that patchy beard and the supervillain craziness of it all. It's just
But you know what I'm saying? As a character becomes more anguished or depressed or unlike themselves on TV shows, I remember in 24, there's one I think where his daughter doesn't want to speak to him and he gets weaned off heroin or something like that, and he grows a big beard because the beard denotes laziness and anguish and struggle. Do on TV? I mean, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
That cliche where the beard. Look at Superman, the fucking Hack Snyder shitty Superman. How do I show that Superman is anguished? Well, let's give Superman 3-day stubble. I mean, come on now. Come on. Can we just talk about Hack Snyder being fucking terrible? Just an awful human being? Because he went, well, how do we show Superman, a paragon of virtue? How do we show that he's feeling a little grumpy and depressed? Oh, give him a beard. I mean, come on now.
You see, there's that. You got too much beard, like in the Knight Rider universe. When Garth Knight escapes from prison, he has a full beard. He's looking sad, but you know what? He gets that suit on. He shaves it down to a soul patch and a mustache, and then he's dastardly. And
At what point does a beard go from just generally menacing to truly dastardly? At what point? Is it where the sideburns break away from the goatee? Is that what it is? Once you make that, once you shave that Red Sea parting between your sideburns and your beard, that's where you start to encroach on dastardly? Is that what happens?
Yes, and then you shave it down. I go back even further back and go to Count of Monte Cristo. He was in prison. He was sad.
Yeah.
He got out of prison. He shaved that shit off and said, you know what? I'm going to look handsome now.
What? Yeah. So, so wait, Gary, are you on the side of... I'm on the side of the beard. I think beards denote self-confidence, self-worth, self-happiness. I think beards denote a comfort in one's own skin, a cozy, wonderful, welcoming person. That's what I think beards denote. I'm trying to take back the evil connotation of the beard and instead imbue the beard with a loving, warming, empathetic feeling. Are you on the side of that, Gary?
Yeah, and I see a lot more, in people that they keep it, and
you're seeing more empathetic beards out there. Is that what you're saying?
You tame the empathetic beard. Yeah, you make yourself feel good about it. You put it with various oils and treatments to it, but
it's all about the oils and treatments. Is that what it is?
You see, the depression beard, that's what was missing from Stargate,
Right.
Kurt Russell, his son, accidentally kills himself with his gun.
Yeah.
When he's sitting in bed wanting to kill himself, he's not, no kind of beard at all. Like, he's clean shaven.
Yeah.
That's what makes that character unbelievable because, I said that level of depression will require a depression beard.
Oh, 1,000%. But also, is there anything more sinister than the few films in which James Spader, his co-star in Stargate, appeared with facial hair? When James Spader has facial hair, it is categorically the most perverse facial hair that has ever existed.
Well, he needs the facial hair, with the Paisley shirt from the New Kids. If he had a beard,
yeah,
and he is rocking his Paisley wardrobe from the New Kids,
yeah,
I think that that ensemble would be nonstop in the dastardly depression beardness of our discussion.
True. But there are some films, I think Slow Burn and I think Keys to Tulsa, which are two, by the way, of the worst James Spader films to have ever been made in the history of James Spader films. In both of those movies, he has a mustache soul patch combo that is so perverse. I mean, beyond dastardly. If there is a step beyond dastardly, that's where Spader's mustache soul patch combo lies.
Well, does he walk with an ironic cane, though?
No, he doesn't. He normally wears, I think in both those movies, he sports a lot of greasy tracksuits.
Again, go back to the Garth Knight analogy there.
Right.
Being the best evil, same actor with a mustache and in soul patch,
sure.
The Hoff,
Yeah, of course.
That guy wore like Saturday Night Fever slacks and outfits, and he had a walking cane, for no reason. He could walk. He just had an ironic cane.
Oh, he could walk. I've seen a lot of spinals, dude, and this guy's a phony.
Yes.
Anyway, this guy can fucking walk. That's all I'm saying. He doesn't need that cane at all. No, you're right, Gary. And isn't it funny? I just want to point out that we had not only an evil Knight Rider, which, by the way, can we just bask in the glow of the beauty of that? The idea that people were watching Knight Rider and going, you know what we need from Knight Rider is even more Hasselhoff. Is there a way that we can have two Hasselhoffs in the same show? And thus the evil Knight Rider was born. But then Quantum Leap had an evil Leaper. However, the evil Leaper was not Scott Bakula wearing a dastardly mustache. No. And I have to say that Quantum Leap missed a trick there, because I feel like the evil Leaper in Quantum Leap should have had a dastardly mustache. What say you, Gary?
Yes, because it holds the whole ensemble together. Because you see, the Hoff has that level of arrogance where he can pull it off.
Man. He can pull it off.
When he gets inside Goliath, which you haven't seen Knight Riders, young whippersnappers.
Yeah.
This is a truck that has all of Kit's qualifications, but it is a semi-truck that Garth has created to destroy the person that his father built in him, literally built in his image. So he's literally Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But Garth Knight is so angry by this that Cain has to kill Abel with a massive semi-truck,
Right. Well, it's the two sides of the Hasselhoff ego battling each other for dominance. That's what it is.
And then later on, so he builds the Juggernaut, and they destroy Kit, and then a street gang rebuilds him to Tina Turner's We Don't Need Another Hero. Now, what's more 80s than that? Come on.
What is more? Yeah. No, there is. The answer is none more 80s. If the people who were putting the Evil Knight Rider back together were also wearing pop socks and listening to the soundtrack of Electric Boogaloo, Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo, then yes, that is the most 80s thing. While Van Damme, urinates on a snake or something. But talking about great great battles, because we're talking about battles and films and stuff. Were we talking about battles? We were talking about battles, right?
Somewhat, yes.
Between the evil and the good.
If not, we were getting to it for sure.
Yeah. Oh no, we were in that ballpark, Gary, and I think we should stay there because I think it segues beautifully towards our subject tonight. So, as I alluded to in my introduction, along what the new path of the After Movie Diner was going to be, films starring people that I really like, that I really should have seen, that I haven't seen yet, and VHS deep dives. This is what I started off thinking about doing. And Gary came to me and he was like, brother, I want to be on more shows, and I want you to be on more of my shows, and I want to talk about Michael Paré. And I was like, well, I love Michael Paré. Ever since he gave us his Eddie Wilson. Who didn't love Michael Paré? We all love Eddie and the Cruisers, and if you don't, you're a bad person. I was like, I'm on board. Let's do a Michael Paré series between the diner and Cinema Beef. We're in the parade way. Every night and every day. I don't care what you say. We're not listening anyway. Harry and John, who won't get along, are in the parade way. Okay, it's a game that we have to play. We both love Michael Paré. This is how we will stay. I don't know how better to convey, so I put it in song that Gary and John are where they belong. They're in the parade way. And then I said, well, look, I've been on the diner. I've been doing these VHS deep dives. So let's, at least when we're on the diner, let's also cover a VHS deep dive. So last time, you can remember Matt Poirier and myself talking about Kurt Russell in Soldier and Meredith Salinger in The Kiss. That was our two movies. Well, this time around, I threw down one of the movies. Gary threw down the other movie, and they have, funnily enough, even though we thought they might have something to do with each other, because on the VHS covers it featured chainmail and a giant axe, they actually have absolutely nothing nothing to do with each other at all. But Gary, what was the movie that you brought to us tonight, sir, and why is Michael Paré? Here we go.
Well, Michael Paré is a thespian of sorts, but this first one is kind of a cheat because he's only in the film for like 4 minutes.
Right.
So I did not know that going in, but boy was I overjoyed by the end of this fucking thing, because it is fucking bonkers. It goes off the rails, like super fast, and I'm not disappointed.
I think it starts off the rails. I think it starts devoid of any rails. I think it starts as some sort of primordial soup of madness, and it just sort of bubbles up, and by the end of the movie, it's just about forming limbs and crawling its way out of the ocean and growing lungs, but only just. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, it takes a little while to get there, but I think from in the first 20 minutes, I'd say.
What movie are we talking about, Gary?
Sorry, we were talking about DragonFight from 1990.
1990,
which is I looked in there, or 89, depending on where you look. I don't know what the year, but it says 1990 on the IMDb, so we'll go with that.
Yeah, no, 1990. I would go with that. Yes.
And this is a film that stars Robert Z'Dar.
Yeah.
As a man who goes to go battle people
Yeah.
Much out of the Running Man. Really, he's kind of like in the Running Man, but
Yeah.
when you think, oh, this sounds like the Running Man, you're just turned off right away because you're turned on. I'm turned on because it's nothing like the Running Man because they essentially set a guy like him with another guy, and in our case, our hero sorts who doesn't want to be a sword fighter anymore. We want to reach that final level of Bushido or some shit.
Yeah.
And have them fight to the death in the desert.
Some kind of Bushido or shit is exactly how I felt about it. Yes, and then they're in the desert. They're meant to be in Arizona, but I happen to know for a fact that they're at Vasquez Rocks, which is about an hour north of Los Angeles. It's in California.
It looks like it though. It looks legit to me, with the canyons and stuff. And
having lived out there and having traveled Arizona and California pretty extensively, it is so Vasquez Rocks is most famous for where Kirk fought the Gorn in an episode of Star Trek, the famous episode of Star Trek. But it's also well known for Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, where they kill the robot usses kill Bill and Ted. It is also famous for Blazing Saddles was filmed there. And almost every single Star Trek film has been shot there at some point. The Ten Commandments, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Jingle All the Way, John Carter, Little Miss Sunshine. Almost everyone of any genre has filmed at Vasquez Rocks. Weirdly enough, though, Gary, and here's something that just to prove that the internet is never 100% accurate. Do you know what film that Wikipedia does not list as having been filmed at Vasquez Rocks?
Could you say DragonFight?
DragonFight.
No?
They don't list DragonFight, but I'm here to tell Wikipedia you're fucking wrong, and I'm here to lay down the DragonFight gauntlet because I know, because I just watched it, that DragonFight was filmed at Vasquez Rocks, and you, Mr. Wikipedia, need to amend your data. Isn't that right, Gary?
That's right, man. You need to fix that shit because
DragonFight might be the most important film ever shot at Vasquez Rocks.
It is a magical film filled with actors.
Magical. Magical is most definitely the word, yes.
And a very layered George Buck Flower in this movie.
Best thing in it. Best thing in the movie.
Why is he wearing so much clothes in the desert? I have no idea. It's just,
He's been drinking, Gary. Don't put him behind the wheel of a car. He's been drinking.
Oh, yeah. He mentions that like 7 times.
7 times. Yes,
but you know what? It all pays off at his death, okay?
It does, because he is ultimately the wise man who departs the most important message, which is, Gary, it is not the hand that holds the sword, but the hand that releases the sword.
Because of compassion. George Buck Flower. Doing voiceover. Come on, y'all.
I've been drinking.
I've been drinking.
But I have to say, Buck Flower, he's really the star of this picture, is he not?
Oh, yeah, the great, wonderful George Buck Flower with, I'm sure you've heard it many times on this show, but if you're new at this, George Buck Flower is mostly known as the bum from Back to the Future films.
Yeah.
But he has been in many genre things.
Hundreds.
Yes.
He's in at least 3 John Carpenter films. At least.
Yes.
3 John Carpenter films. I think he's definitely in They Live, right?
And Escape from New York, too.
Escape from New York. And
there's a third one there somewhere. Just can't think.
I can't think. But no, George Buck Flower. And once you know the name and face of Monsignor George Buck Flower, you will always henceforth spot him. Is that not right, Gary?
Because I'm wearing this, so I must be the president,
That is phenomenal. That is phenomenal. Another John Carpenter alum in this movie, another Monsignor as well, Monsignor James Hong, who again I think does he have the most IMDb credits? Is that the thing? I know Eric Roberts has like 750 films or something, but I think James Hong, right? So James Hong has 463 credits as an actor. So let's just see what Eric Roberts has. I think Eric Roberts beats him. What do you think, Gary? Are you willing to put a bet on it?
I would think so, because Eric is working like at a Dairy Queen next week sometime, filming a movie too, probably.
So I'm sorry, right? So James Hong, I've heard him say at many a convention, and I love James Hong. Please, I'm not shitting on James Hong, but I've heard him say that he has the Guinness World Records for the most credits on IMDb. Not true. His credits are 461. Eric Roberts currently stands at an actor credits of 845. Ladies and gentlemen, if you ever think that you work hard, let me introduce you to Mr. Eric Roberts, the hardest worker in the history of hardest workers. Am I not wrong, Gary?
Yeah, you're not wrong. And, one of his biggest, newest roles, and I have been watching this religiously because he's on there, is Dancing with the Stars, because he's really trying to do his thing out there. And,
Dude, I am loving watching him on that show. I'm so glad that you and I connect with the Dancing with the Stars. I'm not one for reality TV. Anyone listening to this right now is like, oh my God, John has shit the bed, joined the millennials, and suddenly he's watching fucking reality TV. What the fuck happened to John? This is the man who hates reality TV. Okay, look. All right, look. I hate 99.9% of reality TV, but I have such a soft spot for Dancing with the Stars. But I have a soft spot for when they bring on Eric Roberts or Reginald VelJohnson. Like, I want them to fucking win, not the young, fit, healthy. Listen, they're going to fucking succeed no matter what they do, because fucking look at them fucking la-di-da. I want to see Reginald VelJohnson and Eric Roberts get a whole fucking new lease of life and star in a buddy cop series called Flaggin' and Waggin' or something. Like, I would be all over that shit. And I just think that I root for the underdog. What, Gary? But I love that you and I clearly are either out Dancing with the Stars fans or closet Dancing with the Stars fans. Either way, I don't care. I love Dancing with the Stars, but don't tell anyone.
Well, much like Reginald VelJohnson and Eric Roberts, I'm extremely happy to be here on the diner talking about DragonFight with you, sir.
Yes, of course. I don't mean to digress. I was just trying to.
No.
I was trying to bond with you on the whole Dancing with the Stars thing.
And I agree. They bring folks on there that you flock to if you're a genre fan.
Mr. T, and then we had your man from Karate Kid, Martin Cove.
Yep.
So I just feel like they put those 80s icons every season just to rope me in.
Stevie Gutenberg was nice on there too.
The Gutbergs. Listen, former diner guest Steve Gutenberg. Can you believe that, Gary? I spoke to Steve Gutenberg. Who can believe that shit? Come on.
I met him in person, and he seems like the type that would, give you some time. So, I'm not surprised.
He gave me some time, and I love that. And I want to hear, as we go through this series, Gary, as we talk through these movies together, because everyone needs to subscribe to not just the After Movie Diner, but also the Butcher Shop / Cinema Beef podcast on any podcast app, because we are going to be bouncing this Paré tennis ball back and forth between the two shows. Am I not wrong, Gary?
You are very correct on that, sir.
Yes. So we are, and again, when I say am I not wrong, Gary, I think that's confusing. Because I don't know whether that's a double negative or not. It sounds like it might be, but let's move on. So, DragonFight. Let's just try and explain this. So, it is set in the future, right? And it is a future where corporations have decided to fight warriors live on television or something.
Oh, it's
right? I'm confused already.
I'm confused too. They have cameras. But you spend a lot of time with these corporate stooges.
Yeah.
And it just seems like a bunch of guys who get their jollies off by like betting each other's companies.
Right.
Just to see whose guy's gonna win.
So can you explain something to me though, right? So there is a televised murder competition, right? That in this futuristic America, whatever, the corporations televise a battle to the death across the desert in Arizona between two warriors, right? And this is accepted, right? Yet, by the same token, in this movie, the corporate stooges who have been betting both for and against their own company are worried about the feds busting them. But this is a world where we're meant to believe that they televise actual murder, and they're worried, mind you, that someone on a corporate level might be making money on it. They're okay, Gary, with televised murder, but if you bet on it, well, fuck you, we are coming for you and tearing down your house. Is that what this movie is saying, Gary?
Well, yeah, they're saying that, and I gotta say the difference between this and The Running Man is that The Running Man is established that this is like the hottest show on TV, and the Department of Justice is involved.
Right.
I don't think anybody's involved, but the corporations, because they're literally out on the streets trying to find their warriors, to where.
Yeah, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make so. The fundamental problem with this movie. So very quickly, the plot is this. As the plot is this, as we are led to believe. But through Gary and I's discussion, we will poke holes in even the thinnest of frameworks that this movie hangs off. But this is the framework that the movie is trying desperately to convince you of, but I'm not convinced. It is that we are in a corporate-led future where in order to... the corporations have got so big and have so much money that the only way that they can assert dominance is by hiring warriors to duke it out on a televised battle to the death in the desert type show. And we have a situation where a journeyed American hero who has fought in every single battle and won multiple times over is forced into being one of these duelers or battlers on this weird televised corporate run show, and he realizes the only way to win the fight is to not fight at all. And in the process of that, his combatant, played by Robert Zadar, decides, well, if you're not going to fight, I'm going to murder everyone I come across until you find a reason to fight. And at a certain point, Robert Zadar kills a bunch of mothers, and our hero, played by the actor Paul Kufos, he suddenly decides, okay, I will finally fight you, goes up against Zadar, etc., etc., etc. So that's the world that the movie is trying to tell us exists. However, as we already started to break down before I explain the full plot, is that we already have questions about even that thinnest of frameworks, don't we, Gary? Because how is it a corporately powerful, mass media run world where everyone is still scared of the police and everyone is still worried that somehow that what they're doing is illegal, even though they are legally allowed to kill people on television?
Well, there's established rules in DragonFight that we do not read or hear about because they're written in Japanese on some leaflet that Michael Paré, with the most unattractive pony nub I've ever seen in my life. In a
Gary,
movie.
I would use the word egregious
Yes.
ponytail, the most egregious ponytail. That's what I would use.
I mean, it is erect to where if he had sex backward, gave head backwards, he could use it to stimulate the lady parts with his huge pony nub that's very erect.
Has anyone? So I want anyone to write in who has used their erect ponytail to pleasure the lady parts. If that has ever happened to any of the people listening tonight who have an erect ponytail, if you have ever pleasured the lady parts with that ponytail, please write us on a postcard to 150 After Movie Diner, blah blah blah, at hotmail.com.
Well, first of all, if you have the dexterity to put your body in reverse and aim as well as to pleasure your lover, male or female or other, with your erect pony nub, I applaud you to begin with. Okay, so it's just yeah.
But no, Paré is rocking. I would say an egregious ponytail. Every time when he was just face on, you were like, okay, I can handle him. But then the moment you saw a profile, it was so abhorrent to me that I had problems, Gary. I had mental problems.
The moment where Michael Paré breaks the cardinal rule of filming anything and stares at the camera to let you know, hey, this is the plot to DragonFight, y'all.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's funny because we're talking about two movies on this show that both suffer from the situation where, in order to understand it, you have to have an old wise character sit in a chair and go, this is what is happening in this movie. Both films that we're talking about tonight have that issue, which is you only begin to understand them once an old wise character sits down and goes, so this is what is happening right now in this film, in case all of you were fucking confused, and we know you're confused because we have made no logical sense up until this point.
Until that all falls apart, and that same old wise man just says, "This is gonna ruin us.
Yeah,
we're all gonna get the chair," or whatever they say.
Right. Well, this is the thing. Is like I say, televised murder, absolutely fine. But wait, if I committed corporate, what is it when you bet both for and against your best interests? I forget what that's called. Whatever it is.
Insider trading, if you will.
Right, insider trading. Right, exactly. So we find out, by the way, very early on in the movie, that one of the corporate stooge haircuts on one side, who I think are on the Zadar side, that we find out that corporate executive has taken every single scrap of shareholder and corporate monies from every single possible thing they could do, and have divided it 50-50 and voted on either side of this battle, right?
Yeah.
So he says that it doesn't matter either way. Like if Zadar kills the American version of what's his name? Like what's that Canadian Rousdowser? I can't remember what his name is. Anyway, but in this movie, I'm talking about Paul Kufos, who is one Canadian tuxedo wearing kung fu fighting motherfucker.
That is his battle armor. He sports, when you first see him, maybe not first see him, but when he comes out to the desert to fight or not fight.
Yes.
He's wearing, well, first of all, Zadar is decked out, full on armor, full chainmail, headdress. He's all ready to rock and roll with this battle.
Yeah.
He comes out with the Canadian tuxedo.
Yeah.
With like a chainmail sash. It's like the most useless piece of combat material I've ever seen in my life.
We have this situation where the executive admits that he doesn't care who wins, right? He doesn't care if Zadar wins, and he doesn't care if the Paul Kufos wins. He doesn't give a fuck because he's bet on both sides, so he can't lose. In fact, he's done it so that it literally doesn't matter. He will only win the amount he'll win because he's gone 50-50 on both sides, right? So it doesn't matter who wins.
But they make no mention that if there's odds or not. Like if he's like 5-1 to lose or something.
Right, I guess so.
Zadar,
Yeah, but I guess so. But even without knowing that, he makes a big speech about how it doesn't matter who wins, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Paul Kufos, what's his character's name?
Something really strange.
Oh, Falchon. So Falchon shows up, right? Flips Zadar, which, by the way, Falchon looks like a 5.5 feet, nothing, mostly it's hair and boot lifts kind of guy. And Robert Zadar, as we all know, is a 10-foot Hulk with a 4-foot wide chin. They're trying to make us believe that this little Canadian tuxedo-clad motherfucker can flip, mind you, Zadar over his shoulder onto a battle axe. That's what they try and convince us. Anyway, he does do that. He flips Zadar onto a battle axe, and Zadar is dying, right? You would think that that executive who was just crowing about the fact that it doesn't matter who wins or loses because I've bet on the other side and I've bet on our own side and everything's good. He goes, don't worry, I've got a contingency witch.
Yes.
Just hanging out. I'm just going because it's not bad enough that we're meant to believe that in a few decades we're going to be watching Zadar-chinned men fight it out on chainmail in the middle of the desert like some kind of barbaric, nonsensical gibberish. No, they want us to believe that a Canadian tuxedo man would be able to flip Zadar chin, and I just don't. I'm not going with it, Gary.
Now, when the ringer, the witch was introduced, I started crying just a little bit when you found out what this person's intentions with stabbing the ground with knives was. Because Zadar, who dies by the flip on the battle axe, is resurrected.
Jesus style, Jesus style.
Not even like Conan, where you're doing a whole ritual. She's doing this from afar to say, hey. And when his eyes opened,
didn't she paint a bunch of bullshit? Didn't she do some of that pillow? What's that Ewan McGregor movie? The pillow butt. What's that movie called? Pillow Talk? No. What is it? The one where he's riding on the back of an Asian chick, and you're like, oh, how artistic that is, and he's got his cock out. What's that movie? You know the one I mean, though. Pillow something.
I'm lost, but I think I know what you're talking about.
The Pillow Book. The Pillow Book. Is the movie called The Pillow Book? I'm not even going to look it up, Gary. I don't even want to know. So anyway, doesn't she paint all over Robert Zadar like in The Pillow Book?
I don't think so. I think she just does some chanting and stabbing on the ground again. And all of a sudden
but he had little red marks all over him, I thought.
I don't recall, but I don't think so.
I think he did.
Yeah, well, we'll go back to that and split hairs on that. But the fact
Gary is not backing down on this one, ladies and germs. It's a fight. It's a dragon fight.
It's more meaningful in Conan, okay?
Okay.
You know, that you have this ringer in the desert to say, hey, if my man gets killed in battle,
right,
we're going to resurrect him and make him even more diabolical.
But I want to remind everybody that the corporate executive, right, bet on both sides of this fight. You've got to believe that Zadar was the favorite to win, and therefore the fact that the other dude won was going to make that executive a ton of money. Yet, instead of the executive being like, dudes, I just made out in the billions. I'm going to go buy an island and live with co-eds for the rest of my life. I'm going to call it Island of Co-eds, and we're going to go live there. Instead of doing that, he gets all panicked. He instigates the witch to there's witches now. It's not just the future, Gary. There are witches. Mm-hmm. So wait a minute. In the future, magic just exists? Sure,
magic exists.
It just exists. That doesn't in the future. Magic exists because that's how the future works, Gary. In the future, magic will exist. We just haven't discovered enough magic yet. That's the problem. Anyway,
in the ripe year of 1999, in which this film is supposed to take place,
right?
I would like to believe if you put two swordsmen out in the desert, one that didn't give a shit and one just wants to murder everybody. Yeah. That you would need some kind of upward magician woman to
wait, but who expected that fucking Falchion was going to be able to flip Zadar fucking 360 into a battle axe? Who that took me by surprise, Gary. I have to say, I was hoping that Zadar would somehow just kill everybody because that's the movie I wanted to watch.
In Dungeons and George Buck Flower, though, if you roll for dexterity and you get a 17 or better, you can flip a Robert Zadar, no problem.
Is that what it is? It's all down to the roll of the dice.
Oh, yeah.
You got to know when to roll them. Nowhere to hold him. Anyway, Gary, I'll tell you this right now. Know when to run, right? Know when to run. Anyway, so DragonFight. Let's get down to brass tacks. So there has been a rich history pretty much since the 80s, but there's been a rich history since the 80s of stunt persons and stunt performers turned directors. One of the ones that the internet loves to talk about is Action USA, where the also weirdly named Jon Stewart, not the Daily Show Jon Stewart, but the other Jon Stewart, spelled the other way, stunt person turned director, delivered us a wonderful gonzo B-movie full of ridiculous car stunts, bare breasts, and explosions in all the right ways. And I think that when I was reviewing that movie, Action USA, I think I said we should just let stunt performers at a certain point start making movies. Well, Gary, how prescient was I? How ahead of the curve was I when I said that? Because now every single movie is pretty much directed by a stunt performer.
Yeah, it started with Needham, really. Needham, directing.
Oh, we are going back. I love it. Hal Needham. Yeah. Let's bring it up. Let's go back there. Let's go back to the Burt Reynolds days.
To make an action film, you got to know the facets of an action film. And who would know the facets of the action film better than a stunt coordinator or a fight coordinator? I mean, one of the most epic films of the era, of this era, is of most eras, is Stone Cold, which is directed by Craig Baxley.
Craig Baxley, who cut his teeth on my favorite. We were talking about 80s TV shows back earlier when we were talking about Knight Rider and Quantum Leap. My favorite of all time, Sir Craig R. Baxley cut his teeth on what epic TV show? The A-Team.
The A-Team, yep.
Oh, Gary, are you as big a fan of the A-Team as I am a fan of the A-Team?
They can't shoot for shit, but they're charming as fuck.
That's
all I'll say about that,
They are charming as fuck, and they can build anything out of 150 cabbages, some poster tubing, half a bit of metallurgy, and a hammer. I don't know what I'm saying anymore, Gary, but I love it, and I love every fucking goddamn minute of it.
You just need a flatbed truck, and you can build a battle machine, right?
Yeah. God. Every week, the A-Team, throughout my entire life, served up a glorious concoction of comedy, action, and drama that just filled the soul. And there is no other replacement that has ever bettered the A-Team in quality and content. And I know who they all were behind the scenes, and I know all of the problems with the show, but I unabashedly love it and will never, ever decry it. The A-Team rules. So yes, Craig R. Baxley, excellent example of the stunt performer turned director.
And Templeton Peck, a.k.a. the Face Man.
The Face Man.
Yeah, he got more ass than a rental car, but at the end of the day, he can work a ratchet like nobody's business, okay?
He was the king of the blagging your way into somewhere. Coming up with a last-minute story that anybody else would just... And I have to say, it's funny, right? Because when I think of my 80s upbringing, right? I think of, Beverly Hills Cop. I think of Fletch. I think of the A-Team. And I think of and I also think of Bugs Bunny or whatever. But I think of characters that were always putting on wigs and talking their way into things. Do you know what I mean?
You see, Hannibal Smith did that,
right?
But the coolest thing about a good old Face Man, Templeton Peck, is that they knew him as the Face Man and Templeton Peck. But when he went to a party or something with some mad women around, he still used his name like he's not on the run with the rest of them. Right. He just didn't care.
Right. He didn't give a shit because he was all about the poontang. But
see, he was secretly acquitted. Is my issue with the A-Team. He just was hanging out with them to blow shit up.
Shit up. Yeah, exactly. he was the most Tom Jones style playboy of the lot of them, most definitely. But no, and then right up until John Wick and Deadpool, undoubtedly two of the most successful franchises of the last decade. You cannot argue with that. And both of them led, driven, directed by, and coordinated by stunt performers. If you throw, for example, Spiros Rosatos into the mix with the Fast and the Furious franchise, you now have practically the three biggest money makers that Hollywood has right now, all driven by, directed by, and led by stunt persons. And that's
I think
incredible.
Didn't he start as a director, though? Because I just watched...
Who's that, sir?
Rosatos. I just watched...
No, he started as a stunt performer with PM Entertainment.
Because I just watched Class of 1999 Part 2 with the great Sasha Mitchell, the ridiculous fucking movie.
Yeah.
And he directs that, so I assumed he directed first and then became his own coordinator.
Oh, okay. I'm on his page right now. Give me just 1 second. Let me go all the way back. Bum, 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 bum.
That's a good call on Spiro, though, by the way. I'm just going to throw it out there,
Spiro is the man. I mean, seriously, the number of... franchises and things and films we wouldn't have without him. I think of him as the Greg Nicotero of stunts. Do you know what I mean? Like he's the guy behind the camera that the people who genuinely care about fucking movies knows about, right? And people who don't care about movies don't know about Greg Nicotero and Spiros Rosatos, but they should know about them because without either of them, Maniac Cop 2 would not be the kick-ass fucking movie that it is.
I want to know the guy the genius who came up with, if this fucking hillbilly straps a rocket to the back of Pontiac Fiero and they fly into space, that the masses will still watch this Fast and the Furious franchise.
Oh, we are not only will we watch it, but we are on board on a level that you cannot believe.
Yes,
we are all about it. So let me have a look. So Spiros' first directorial movie was in 1991 with Fast Getaway. So he cast my milady Cynthia Rothrock in a film with my least favorite Corey. However,
and Leo Rossi, respectively,
No, we love Leo Rossi, and he knows Leo Rossi from that's right, the Bill Lustig movies, both Maniac Cop 2 and Relentless, because Leo Rossi is one of the Larry Cohen, Bill Lustig stock players. They show up. Leo Rossi, if you look up Leo Rossi, he's been in a bunch of Larry Cohen movies, a bunch of Bill Lustig movies, and even some Fred Williamson movies. So it spreads onwards and outwards with the Leo Rossi love. So I'm not one to decry the Rossi. I'm well aware of the wonderful life of Mr. Leo Rossi. However, just to take it back to our man Spiros, his first directorial movie was 1991. His first stunt credit is in 1982. So he was a stunt performer before he was a director.
Cool. Real journeyman. I love that kind of thing,
Yeah, guess what? We are the podcast known for our love of the Spader. What was one of Spiro Rosatos' earliest stunt work? None other than Tough Turf.
There you
with
go.
The Spader at his sexual peak. Able to lay just about anything with one flick of an eyelash. He was glazed, bronzed, and in tidy whities, and women were slipping off their chairs the world over for James Spader. Anyway,
so hard.
But no, so there's a lot of stunt performers who have now taken to either second unit directing or fully blown directing, and as I've pointed out, are the backbones of some of the most major franchises on the planet, making money for the studios, which all the more makes it so insulting that when the Oscars had the chance to add a stunt Oscar, they didn't, and instead, just during the Oscars, talked vaguely about stunt performers without really actually naming any actual fucking stunt performers or even acknowledging any actual fucking stunt performers, because the Oscars sucks balls and I fucking hate it. Why? You had the chance. You were creating new Oscars, and also it's made up creating new Oscars. You had the chance. It was the time. You could literally tomorrow, you could all just be like, yeah, we're having an Oscar for best trousers, and everyone would just have to fucking deal with it because you decided it. So if you want to just decide to do a stunt Oscar, do a fucking stunt Oscar, because you're constantly trying to tell us that fucking Steven Spielberg is able to do all this shit that he puts on film. No, it's the stunt performers that do it, and they should get much kudos. So I wanted to use this episode, Gary, because of this film being directed by a stunt performer, to sing the praises of stunt performers and let them know that the real fans know what we're talking about and know who they are. Right, Gary?
Oh, yeah. Which is, at the end of the day, this being filmed by a stunt coordinator, directed by him, makes this film way better than it deserves to be. Because we get down to the marrow, down to the battle scenes and the way that they're filmed. Because there's obvious stuntman work in this movie. Yeah. But
in the best way. That's how I want it. I like my stuntmen, Gary, where you look at it and you go, that's a stunt guy in a wig.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he knew how to cut. Now, again, I'm giving way too much credit. But, especially, in the final battle where Zadar is not that, he's not that, ambidextrous. And, not ambidextrous, for a word here. Wait for a word here. He's not that agile on his feet to be doing all this footwork and all these turns and stuff, obviously.
Yes, I know what you mean. Agile is a good word.
It's filmed in a way, I give credit to Lloyd Kaufman for this all day long. The scene where Warren goes on nuclear and he punches his fist down the Cretan's throat.
Yeah.
That's cut so well with the budget. And that final fight scene in this film especially is cut so well because a stunt coordinator was at the helm. And he knew what to keep and what to throw away, as far as making the actors look good.
I would. I think that what I've said in the past is and I've said this before, is that, we should just let stunt performers make movies, because whenever I've seen a movie made by a stunt performer, it's always been enjoyable. The DragonFight is certainly enjoyable. I would never fully want to shit all over DragonFight. DragonFight is fine. However, when I think of, and it's interesting, I brought up PM Entertainment and Spiro Rosatos because Warren A. Stevens, who directed DragonFight, who we're talking about, was a stunt performer. Warren A. Stevens did work with PM Entertainment as well. And I think that it is no mistake that the ones that Spiro worked on versus the one that Warren worked on, the ones that Spiro worked on, PM Entertainment movies, are the ones that people are talking about today. Because I feel that when I think of stunt person, I think of someone who can do everything. It's fighting, it's car stunts, it's being set on fire, it's doing a high dive, it's doing whatever. But really, there aren't many stunt people like that. Probably only a handful, like Grant Page in Australia and Spiro in America. Most stunt people specialize. Some are stunt fighters, some are stunt fallers, some do fire stunts, some do other stuff. And so what I noticed was, I think I went into this thinking that Warren A. Stevens, he's a stunt person, so this is going to be filled with, helicopter explosions and mad car stunts and whatever it was. I think when I look through his resume, he's probably more of a fight stunt choreographer than he is necessarily a stunt, meaning high falls and explosions and all that stuff. Because I have to say that this movie does get a little bit repetitive with the sort of fist fights. And they're sort of fist fights that you kind of go, well, I'm not buying this other than you're telling me to try and buy it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, they're the whole, let's pick a fight with this guy in a bar thing when they're I guess, looking for their man towards the beginning, and that goes nowhere. And
right.
But yeah, the fisticuffs and stuff, and the fight scenes in general, where they don't have weapons, yeah, they are kind of weak, but it picks up, with certain things, and it's mostly Zadar. I will say this because Zadar is just a madman because when he finds out there's not going to be a fight, he writes in blood after he kills a motorcyclist in the desert.
Yeah.
He writes fight or something like that. Like he's ready to go.
On the rocks. Because that's what Zadar is like. Zadar's just like, wait, no, fight. We gotta fight. What? No, fight. We will fight. And then he's just like, fight. And he's sort of, you can see inside Zadar him gearing himself up to go full Zadar. And he goes full Zadar in this movie.
He takes to murder, he
takes to murder is a good way to put it.
There's a great impaling scene. I don't want to give it away, but Zadar is gleefully impales somebody with this pole arm, and there's a scene in this film that I was rooting for children to die, and let me explain. Okay.
Wow! A bombshell here tonight on the After Movie Diner. Rooting for children to die. Explain yourself, Gary.
And not the visualization of Zadar dismembering a child. Maybe some bloody children strewn about. I digress, because he comes upon this camper with a family,
Yeah.
And there's a point where Zadar has killed the father, and he goes and finds the little boy, and the little boy is pointing his toy gun and says, "Bang, bang." Now, in my eyes, that little boy doesn't know Zadar, and he was provoking him.
Right.
Because you get Zadar tunnel vision, like he wants to murder a child.
Yeah, he will eat a child.
He would eat a child. But you know what? It doesn't happen, and I'm a little sadder because of it.
I think they were going for that Frankenstein scene, with Frankenstein with the little blonde girl. I think that's what they were trying to evoke.
Yeah, but Frankenstein monster threw the child into the lake.
Right.
Now, if
I understand that, but then
if Zadar pulled like some crazy gorilla press slam on a child, and just tossed him into tossed him into the sky like Ferrigno and Hercules,
right? And you would be okay with that?
Well, as long as he made a child constellation, yes, I'd be okay with that.
Listen, I'm with you. I don't believe it. There in the was it in. Yes, in the next movie we're going to be talking about, they kill a dog. And in the movie I watched last night, President's Day, by the great Chris LaMartina out of Baltimore, Maryland, who people will know from WNUF Halloween Special, but who should really know one of his earlier movies, President's Day. It's much better than WNUF Halloween Special, which, is cute and all with the idea and whatever, and it's done very well. And I applaud Chris LaMartina because I love him and Jimmy George whenever they write stuff together. But President's Day, much, 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 much better movie. However, Gary, I digress. The reason why I bring up President's Day is because they also kill a dog in President's Day. I've had enough of this dog killing in movies. Like it's okay that Michael Myers kills a dog. No, kill the child. Save the dog, kill the child. Gary, will you?
See, this is why Gordon from Friday the 13th Part 4 is the smartest character in any Friday the 13th film.
Right.
Because that dog jumped through the window to escape from Jason.
Yeah.
It was never heard from again. Because
right.
Gordon was gone. He's like, man, look, he's going to hack up these white people. And Gordon said, not this dog,
But no, do you agree that we save the dog, kill the child?
Yes,
Chant this with me. Chant this with me.
just not on screen, because again, next film we do get a dog death, but it is off screen. You just see the dog kind of hanging there.
Well, no, I mean, seeing it hanging there was drastic enough. In the movie that I watched last night, President's Day by Chris LaMartina and Jimmy George, starring the great George Stover, which is one of my favorite movies outside of his Dondola work, is President's Day. In it, his lovely little dog gets gutted, and it's not wonderfully pleasant. And
no.
I just think, kill the baby before you kill the dog. And then
Or toss him in outer space like Robert Zadar.
All the pro-lifers now are getting upset with me. But anyway, Warren Stevens, what did I want to say about DragonFight? I'm very familiar with stunt work and stunt films and PM Entertainment and Fast and Furious and John Wick and Action USA and films like that. And I always applaud them and will, support them and think that they should get more recognition and so on. And I think that Warren A. Stevens, considering a lot of his credits and some of the films he worked on, because he didn't work on kind of car or explosion stunt heavy stuff. He worked more on the kind of rough and tumble, roll around, fight, fall out a window kind of stuff. And so it explains a little bit about why DragonFight is what it is. I think that I was expecting a little more. I think that he did a decent enough job from a directorial standpoint in terms of filming it and where to put the camera and some nice shots and some other ideas and things. I think that was fine. I loved Buck Flower in it. I thought he was tremendous. I thought that Michael Paré's ponytail was almost vomitously offensive. But when he was not shot in profile, I was enjoying the Michael Paré performance, such as it was, because he was in the movie for, as you said, about 4 minutes, just playing a corporate slime ball, and that was fine. It was no Eddie Wilson, but it was fine. It was an okay showing from Paré. I think that Robert Zadar threw his all into it, and I think James Hong couldn't decide whether it was worth taking the money because the producer thought he was Japanese and not Chinese.
Yep.
Or not. And I feel like James... I've never seen James Hong phone in a performance until I watched DragonFight. And there he is.
He just looked exhausted. And to the point that they're really selling that Japanese angle to where they were going to lose their shirts, financially after Michael Paré said, by the way, I fucked all you guys over. He literally gets out swords for all the board members so they can Harry carry. Come on now.
Yeah. Well, look, if that's your tradition, Gary, I mean, it seems stupid to us, but in these more broad-minded times, we should look at seppuku or whatever it's called. I don't know the proper words, and I should probably learn. I will stop and I will think and I will learn. But anyway, we may say that mass suicide is wrong from a Western point of view, but maybe in the East, in Japan, it is perfectly normal that if you, don't win a televised murder fest that you were putting on, that you all have to commit, mass suicide. I think that's probably taken it a little harshly, and maybe we should all just take a deep breath. What do you say, Gary?
He doesn't even have Japanese features. It's like this is a man. If you don't know the history of James Hong, you really should.
Yeah,
because him and guys like Mako started like an actors guild for Asian people, and this is the reason why they're so well respected. They have jobs and stuff.
Yeah, right.
For this thing that he created probably like 70 years ago. You know,
James Hong is the man. No one is denying that James Hong isn't a revolutionary icon.
But here he is as a Japanese businessman.
He slummed it, Gary. He slummed it. He probably had to pay for a new fence or something. I have no idea.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, holding these swords like ready to kill themselves, and but he's not Japanese at all. It is what it is.
This is the thing: is that as much so. Here's a duality that I battle with, Gary, and I want to present it to you and see what you think. You know as I do about the wondrous actor Michael Caine. We all know about Michael Caine, right, Gary? You know who Michael Caine is.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there are, as people who have followed Michael Caine's career know, there are two types of Michael Caine. There is the, hello, I'm Michael Caine, I've showed up, I'm going to act, I like the script, I want to be here, this is the bloody fucking tits, and I'm going to act the shit out of it. There's that Michael Caine, and then there's the I've showed up because I want to buy a new garage extension to my house in Los Angeles, and fuck all of yours. I'm not going to act at all. I'm just here to pick up a fucking check. Mm-hmm. And then I get conflicted because I go, well, on one hand, I acknowledge the fact that he was ballsy enough to say that he did Oliver Stone's The Hand so that he could buy a garage on his house. He admitted it. And I thought, well, that's ballsy. It's nice to hear someone admit that they did shit for money. But then on the other hand, you go to yourself, right, but you didn't even act in the movie. Like, you didn't even bother to show up. You just... So on one hand, I like him because he's honest about why he took a role. And on the other hand, I go, right, but you didn't act. The thing I love about James Hong, he's almost always on the ball. The only time I've seen him lackluster was sadly in this movie. But I don't mean to diminish him any because he's a legend.
Michael Caine, when he overacts, is special. You know, like the Paycheck movie I go to the most is on Deadly Ground.
Yeah.
To where he goes to the point of
full Caine. Like he goes full like, Caine. He goes past the normal Caine.
He has like spray on hair that looks like oil.
Yeah, the black hair. Yeah.
He deals in oil, and
yeah.
I picture Michael Caine sitting at a full screen of this, and him getting to the Emerald Seagulls talking about fucking saving the world or something. What the fuck is I can't do Caine right now, but what the fuck is this? You know, just
what the fuck is this? I didn't sign up for none of this Steven Seagal saving the world bullshit. I signed up for a paycheck because I thought it was only going to be watched in Taiwan. All right, I'm going home, and I'm going home. I'm going to have 5 very large scotches, and then I'm going to go balls deep in some Limehouse strumpet.
God. So perfect.
Sorry,
It's so perfect.
I went full Caine there, Gary. I'm sorry.
That's
I went
fine.
Full Caine. I've never gone full Caine before.
See, I think Caine wanted a vision quest in that movie too. That's why he was so mad about it. You know.
Yeah, it felt good. Listen, I have to say, so there's 2 things. First of all, I'm really glad I watched DragonFight. I'm glad that I live in a world where something like DragonFight exists. On the other hand, I'm sorry, it probably gets a low score from me because I think that, especially coming from a stunt performer, I would expect to see more actual stunts. And while the fights were fine, they were also very repetitive, and I didn't see much in the way of, falling, crashing, exploding, or even any kind of swordplay that I could write home about.
Yeah, I'd say on your YouTube channel rating, which I've watched all those, by the way, so far.
Thank you so much,
VHS
Gary.
reviews.
We'll talk about that in a minute, yeah.
We'll give it a 2 and call it a keeper, okay? Put it that way,
I love that. Dude, I know exactly what you mean. Listen, Gary, dude, that meant so much to me because... You're right. I'm doing this series, and thank you for bringing it up. I'm doing this series on YouTube, everybody, called the VHS Corner, in which all the movies that I'm buying up for my video store, Be Kind Movie Vault, here in New Milford, Connecticut, one of the greatest towns in the States. Please come visit New Milford, Connecticut. We would love to see you. I have a little video store here, and I've been buying up lots of VHS. And invariably, when I get a big box of VHS, my 2 thoughts are, well, do I already own the movie on Blu-ray? Because if I already own the movie on Blu-ray, as much as it would be potentially valuable or whatever, I'm not keeping that, horror VHS. I'm going to sell it, right? Because I already have the movie. If I just keep the VHS, it's just taking up space. So, but then there are other movies that I come across, like the ones that I'm covering on the VHS Corner, where you kind of go, well, wait, I know the people in this movie, or wait, I know the director of this movie, or whatever it is. But you go, how is it that I've never heard about this movie until this? Because invariably when you buy a box of 20 or 30 or 40 VHS, invariably some of it is filler, right? And some of these filler movies are the ones that I keep and I look at and I go, what the hell is this? This is a movie with David Emge and John Saxon in it. Like, what are you talking about? That's insane. Like, why is no one, I've been in the movie review, podcasting, online movie community for almost 15 years at this point. And for me to not know about a movie that has John Saxon and David Emge in it is pretty fucking rare. So when I come across a movie that is exactly that, called Hellmaster, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to, think about it and so on and so forth. So I'm having fun doing these videos, but it means a lot to me that you said that, Gary, because that's exactly how I feel about some of these films. They can be a 2-star, but there's something about them that I just don't want to let go. There is, whether it's in the case of Hellmaster, which I just mentioned, which you can see on YouTube right now, it's the ability to own the last film that David Emge from Dawn of the Dead performed in, and also just another movie with John Saxon in, and other reasons to own that movie. But also, it can come down to, I'm not going to necessarily whip DragonFight out at every opportunity, but I wouldn't necessarily want to think of a world where I couldn't watch DragonFight. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally makes sense. Totally does.
So I'm with you, sir. I think it's a 2-star, but it's a keeper, because who doesn't want... I mean, just Roberts. Warren A. Stevens, I looked it up, had worked with both Zadar and Charles Napier before in the Hell Comes to Frogtown sequel, Frogtown 2, which had both Zadar and Napier in it, and was worked on by Warren A. Stevens. So that's how they all met, or certainly that was a movie that they were all on together. However, I could not find a film in which Paul Kufos starred in that had anything to do with Warren A. Stevens. So I guess that he just came across Paul Kufos the normal way, I imagine.
Yeah, they spent all the money on Zadar's chainmail, so they gave him a stash, and begat a hero, I guess. Yeah.
Well, what I found odd was that Paul Kufos, who is the so-called reluctant hero Falchion in DragonFight, who people will know as Dr. Stan Simon in the cult B-movie hit Chopping Mall, and whose last movie, as far as IMDb is concerned, is a movie called Sometimes a Hero, which is funny, Gary, because isn't that a line that he has in this movie? Doesn't he talk about, like, sometimes a hero is the guy who doesn't fight or some shit?
Well, that was Buck Flower's big moment for all the roses in this movie.
Right.
He literally has a hold my beer moment in this movie, and
yeah,
he gives the one pearl of wisdom that makes him want to fight. To say, a man's compassion is built on his ability to put the sword down, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And wait a second, I'm gonna have this last sip of my beer, and I'm gonna go die in the desert somewhere.
I have to say, but George Buck Flower was the best thing in this movie, though.
Oh, he is.
He's hands down the best thing in the movie. Oh, can we talk about very quickly, before we move on to the next movie, can we talk about very quickly how they crowbarred in a not even needed, completely pointless love moment, where she was like, well, you got to learn how to be with someone again, and then she just smoochy roochies. This is Charles Napier. So Charles Napier is the local ranger, right? He runs the ranger station. And at a certain point, the executive businessman who's running the Zadar team, for some reason, sends a helicopter into the thing to kill all the rangers. I suppose so that Zadar can continue on his killing spree, which again asks the question that if this is televised and if it's okay to murder a bunch of rangers, why does anyone care who is betting on this fucking business? Because all law has gone out of the window. There is no law. We're in a lawless society. If it's okay to murder a bunch of rangers from a helicopter on a TV show, then I'm sorry, what side you're betting on shouldn't fucking matter. That was one of the weirdest things in this movie, was everyone panicking that the feds were going to get them when they've been televising murder. Anyway, what was I talking about, Gary? I'm sorry, I lost it, dude. I lost it.
the daughter character of George Buck Flower being the horned in love interest, which is one of the biggest mistakes of a movie like this.
The daughter, right. Yes.
Yeah.
The daughter, so she was Charles Napier's. Again, this movie giving me extraneous information that I never needed, ever, at any point. But Charles Napier had left this random woman at the altar at their wedding because he didn't...
They keep bringing it up, too, for no reason, you know.
There's a whole... It's like a subplot within a subplot, and you didn't even care about the plot, let alone any of the subplots. Like, they seem to forget that I need to both A, understand, and B, care about the plot before you lay any kind of he and her are sleeping together, but then he left her at the altar and now she's macking out with Zach Rousdower in the fucking Arizona desert while fucking Robert Zadar's chin is growing by 3 feet and there's a fucking witch, a real life magic witch who can just bring people back from the dead. This is a thing that exists in the future. No one is questioning it. What on earth is going on, Gary?
Well, he had a woman that I guess didn't touch him properly, so he left her at the altar or something, or didn't go to the wedding. Who cares? Yeah, it's like plot points that work in films. Like I just watched Down Periscope. With
Kelsey Grammer, yeah.
With a wonderful group of people in that movie. It's better than it deserves to be.
Is it better than McHale's Navy with Bruce Campbell and French Stewart?
That's rough. It's rough. You know, as far as like picking one. But there's a plot line in there to where Rip Torn only wants Kelsey Grammer because he had a tattoo of Battleship on his dick or something.
Right.
I forget what the tattoo is of.
Okay.
But he just said it out right in the middle. I needed a guy with a tattoo on his dick, and you know what? You were there. You were there for it because it's Rip Torn and Kelsey Grammer. You know, they seem like old chums. You know, show me my dick. I'll show you yours.
They seem like brandy buddies, right?
Yes.
They seem like they were quaffing some kind of outrageously high alcohol contented brandy in rich leather armchairs in some sort of backwater seedy club. Frequented only by the mega important, and there they hatched up their delicious schemes.
You needed the point where the hero and Charles Napier are talking about what. So what happened with this woman we keep talking about? And he starts talking about loving a woman that was unclean or some shit like that, and just keeps going in and out about this, that, and the other. You needed that little story. It's like the Expendables 2. To where, you know, hey, last time I see you, Chuck Norris, you got bit by a snake. What happened? Well, I 3 days later, the snake died, or whatever the joke is.
Right, yeah,
you know, those jokes work because you had that little 30-second conversation.
I mean, I think the best thing we can say about DragonFight is that Robert Zadar never fails to bring his A game. I think that's what we can say most about it. Is that George Buck Flower should have been given an honorary Oscar, knighthood, Emmy. I mean, really, he should just be a EGOT at this point. Just give Buck Flower the EGOT and the Lifetime Achievement, whatever. Just give him all of the things. And then Robert Zadar should be heralded as the greatest leading man of his generation because he never fails. You know, people talk a lot of guff, Gary, about the likes of what's his name in There Will Be Blood. What's his name?
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis. People talk a lot of guff, Gary, about Daniel Day-Lewis, right? But when I watch like There Will Be Blood, I just see a guy with a fake mustache on going, blah, 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 blah. I just see someone doing like a poor imitation of a guy with a mustache. I don't believe it for a second. I'm not buying it, Gary. I'm not buying it. Daniel Day-Lewis is a fraud, and I'm not interested. Whereas when I watch Robert Zadar, I see true passion. I see true madness. I see true meaning. And I see a chin that can't be replicated by Greg Nicotero or anybody.
And now, one thing that gives Zadar a major up for is that every time he's in a film, and no matter where he read 2 lines or read a tagline on a poster or whatever, he knows just what movie he's in.
Oh, yes.
In everything he's ever done.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, this is a guy who brought his A game to Samurai Cop. Like, brought his full arsenal to a movie that was so legitimately ridiculous. That, like, just, it was knowingly ridiculous. I love that movie. I'm not shitting on that movie, but it is knowingly ridiculous. It is not, oh, we were trying to make a serious movie and we made this really goofy as shit movie. It is knowingly ridiculous. Yet Zadar showed up, straight-faced and ponytailed, ready to goatee beard his way through that madness with the most delicious aplomb and joie de vivre and chutzpah, as my people might say. He did it all and more. And DragonFight is the better for it. Also, just kudos in general to people like the James Hongs and the Charles Napiers of the world for showing up when they really don't need to. But it's kind of wonderful that they do.
Oh, for sure. I bring up goofy stuff during sometimes. Like, I tell folks that Three Ninjas Knuckle Up, the second sequel of the Three Ninjas series, has one of the greatest exploitation casts that they didn't mean to have of all time.
Yeah.
Which includes Don Stark and Charles Napier, shit like that.
Nice.
You know, for no reason to be in this movie about kids who want to save an Indian reservation from greedy corporate stooges, and you know, stuff like that.
But by the same token, it's like when you spot Tim Thomerson in a cameo in a major A movie, and you suddenly go, wait, was that like Tim Thomerson? Or Robert Forster showing up in not White House Down, the other one, Olympus Has Fallen. Like Robert Forster showing up in a mainstream movie, and you're just like, there's just a moment there where, you see Clint Howard in a mainstream movie, and you're just, oh, there we go. There's the heart. There's the warm little glow. There's the thing I was looking for. Iron Man 3, one of my favorites. They've got William Sadler as the president. You've got Miguel Ferrer as the evil guy. Like, it's peppered with 80s and 90s action treasures, like the Miguel Ferrers and the William Sadlers of the world. And it's just wonderful when you see that as a film nerd such as I and yourself, Gary. Are we not a little verklempt? We are, right?
Oh yeah, it gives you all the warm fuzzies. I think what was I watching? I was watching Black Lightning for no reason, but for the fact that I saw Robert Townsend and Bill Duke show up on that show. Yeah, I was like, I'm here for it. You know,
of course.
You gotta appreciate stuff like that.
Well, Gary, I don't know if you know, but I've been recently finding a worrying connection, and I'm gonna report on this as we go on throughout the After Movie Diner shows. But I've been noticing with all the B movies and VHS movies and various different Tubi movies and things that I've been watching, that when I IMDb them and I'm looking up the actor or the director or the musical performer or whatever it is, when I've been looking them up, a lot of them can be traced back to I think it was a late 80s, 90s TV show that we were talking about the A-Team earlier. Well, it was an early 90s TV show called Silk Stalkings, which was created by Stephen J. Cannell, who created the A-Team. And it has been surprising to me. Again, it's called Silk Stalkings. It's sort of we were divorced and now we're detectives together, kind of bickering, kind of moonlighting type show, right? Sort of a moonlighting type show. Well, if you go through the cast list and the crew list of this thing, it reads like a B-movie cacophony of wonder and amazement. Like, there are so many of my favorite people who have appeared on the show Silk Stalkings. And it is by Stephen J. Cannell, who made my favorite TV show of all time, The A-Team. So I can only assume that Silk Stalkings is going to be my TV show of the winter. Gary, that's my recommendation. Silk Stockings, TV show of the winter. What say you, sir?
Well, I vaguely remember it. It was on the USA Network, with all those other, like Pacific Blue and the king of USA Network shows, Swamp Thing,
right?
Which
Warren A. Stevens worked on.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think so, right? Didn't he work on Swamp Thing?
Possibly. I mean, it was good TV though. Dick DeRock was still Swamp Thing, in those shows, and
yeah.
I mean, that's one of my heroes. I regret never being able to meet was Dick DeRock because he was Swamp Thing. And
no, wait a minute. It wasn't Warren A. Stevens. Our leading man from DragonFight, none other than Paul Kufos, was the character Bryden Kip in one episode of TV series Swamp Thing in 1991.
Nice. Kufos be working, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Kufos would also show up in 976-Evil 2.
Oh, underrated film.
The sequel to the smash hit. Was the first one a smash hit? I don't think anyone even remembers the first one.
Oh, I do.
I do too, but I don't think anyone else does. And To Die to Sleep was the other movie that he was in. Then the last time he worked was 2003's Sometimes a Hero. He has an upcoming film, apparently. He is appearing in City of Shadows, having not acted in 21 years. He is going to be in City of Shadows, apparently. That is the wonderful Paul Kufos.
Sometimes you got to dust off your chainmail sash and go back to work again.
Yeah, well, he took a lot of time off to have children.
Okay, gotcha. Understandable.
I don't know that to be a fact, but I'm saying it anyway. Well, I mean, what's his name? Rick Moranis gets a shit ton of credit for just saddling up and teaching his children, looking after his kids and everything in the wake of their tragedy. So why not Paul Kufos?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Why not Paul Kufos? We don't know what he was doing.
Because those people are equal, though, by the way. Kufos and Moranis. Not really, because,
No, not at all even. Not even slightly, but yes. Just for people who know that I'm such a PM entertainment head, just to give people a little taste, Warren A. Stevens, the director of DragonFight, worked on the following movies that I either know, like, or have covered on the diner. So, Blood Games, which was the baseball-themed sort of horror, sort of deliverance type drama in the forest with an all-female baseball team, as you do kind of thing. He worked on Blood Games, which you've covered previously on the show. Frog Down 2, which we talked about earlier. He worked on Firepower, which is a Gary Daniels, who is the British shit kicker, the Brit kicker, if you will. Thank you very much. Thank you. Gary Daniels in Firepower. He worked on No Escape, No Return. Cyber Tracker with my boy Don the Dragon Wilson, personal friend of mine, Gary, Don the Dragon Wilson, and his brother James, not the Dragon Wilson, only because he's not a dragon. Anyway, Ice, he worked on Ice, the PM Entertainment movie. He worked on the wonderful Jim Wynorski Munchie Strikes Back movie. Come on now. He also worked with Albert Pien on Cyborg 3, The Recycler. He then worked back with PM Entertainment with Steel Frontier. He worked with the great Clint Howard, friend and fan of the diner, Clint Howard, on Ice Cream Man. He was the stunt performer on Ice Cream Man. You telling me Clint Howard didn't do his own stunts? Come on now. Clint Howard is a man's man, as we all know. Stunting all over the place is Clint Howard.
Yeah, definitely stunting all over the place over Clint Howard. With the icy glare and the patchy skullet going on. You know.
Well, what you were meant to say, Gary, of course.
Yes.
Is you were meant to say the only thing that's stunted about Clint Howard is his height.
Yes, indeed. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
those are the jokes, man,
Listen, no disrespect to the Howard. Clint Howard is the OG Howard brother in my book.
Oh, yeah. We're working real journeyman again, Clint Howard. Eagle Bauer himself. He does good stuff, man.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so we are going to take just a little break, and we will be back after the break with the following film, that is Seizure from Oliver Stone. Gary, I will meet you back here in a minute, sir.
Okay.
So, Gary, do you know what I was thinking about while I was availing myself of further libations because I needed some more water, basically, is what I'm saying. I'm saying that in a fancy way. Fancy way. Do you know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about the song Scenes from an Italian Restaurant by Billy Joel. You know, we always talk about Sgt. Pepper or, Electric Ladyland or whatever. No one's talking about Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. What an epic song that is.
It's a pretty good one for sure.
It's like 3 songs wedged into one song.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. And do you know why I'm thinking about it? I'm thinking about it because the wonderful middle-aged dad jam band headed up by Ken Marino and David Wayne of The State and Wet Hot American Summer and The 10 and Wanderlust, various other movies fame. They have this great band, the middle-aged dad jam band. And my good lady wife on our anniversary surprised me with tickets to the middle-aged dad jam band in New York in December. So it all comes full circle, Gary, and I'm going to be rocking out to some 70s and 80s pop and rock hits as performed by my favorite comedians.
That's very cool. That's very cool, man.
I'm very happy about it. So that's what I was thinking about. Please write in to hello@aftermoviediner.com or aftermoviediner@gmail.com or call me up at 347-669-0053 or go over to speakpipe.com. That's speak as is what I'm doing right now, pipe as in what your water flows through.com, speakpipe.com/aftermoviediner. Leave us a voicemail. Just tell us what do you think about the things I was just talking about, like scenes from an Italian restaurant and things like that. Just tell us. Email us, call us, be a part of the conversation. Otherwise, Gary and I will not feel loved. Will we, Gary?
Oh, did not feel loved at all, no.
I mean, I love you, dude. I love you,
the hardest thing in the world, you know. I love you back, man. You know this.
Right. But we won't feel loved by the masses if they don't write in and tell us what they think about beards, Robert Starr, stuntmen making movies, and the song Scenes from an Italian Restaurant by Billy Joel.
Billy Joel. That sounds legit, man, you know.
Okay, so we are now going way, 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 way back to 1974 and Seizure, which is the directorial debut of none other than Mr. Vietnam himself, Oliver Stone. He wrote and directed this film that stars some of the most middle-aged 70s people to ever middle age in the 70s. Am I right, Gary?
Oh, you're not wrong. There's a lot of aged white people, getting all together, and there's no.
Wait, Gary, did you just say a lot of aged white people getting all together?
Well, there's nothing I like more, like films like this, and films like what is it, Double Times Five,
right?
Where you get a bunch of aged white folks together for them to get murdered, and this is what you want in a movie, right?
Yes, and one could say. I'm not going to go too further down this thing, but one could say that the supposed villains yet maybe heroes in this movie, headed up by none other than the wonderful actor performer Hervé Villachez.
Oh yes,
from what was the Ricardo Montalban show?
Fantasy Island.
From Fantasy Island, and from The Man with the Golden Gun. Most famously. But you could say that they represent in some way minorities and or looked down upon or downtrodden people. Because you have a woman, a large black guy, and a dwarf.
Yeah, you say that, yeah.
I don't know whether that's the point in this movie, I'm just saying. Maybe I'm reading into it.
you have very privileged people who invite other privileged people to their home, and you know they're being punished for some odd reason that you have no idea what's going on, and it's it's kind of like that, like these people against the establishment, if you will.
Do you know, I don't think I knew this about old Villachez. Do you know he argued with the producers of the show in order to earn as much money as Montalban, but instead was fired, and his model actress wife left him?
That's shitty.
Yeah, right? The series continued without him, but stopped 1 year later when the media response meter decreased because of the lack of Tattoo's character. It's very sad that the producers of that show would fire him and he would later become alcoholic and depressed.
All I knew about Hervé was that he was on that show, to plane, and that he carried a hammer and quite the gun everywhere he went, as in a giant Hervé Villachez dong, which he used to, conquer the world, and a massive gun.
Wait, what? Sorry?
I heard he had a big unit. I could be wrong about that,
What did he do? Wait, Hervé Villachez carried around a giant gun or a giant penis?
He possibly both, but I know the gun was a thing with him. He carried a gun around with him quite often, I guess because he felt threatened. He didn't have the powers of Wing Wing after all,
No. But he carried, I'm sorry, he carried around a large vibrator or like a large dong or a gun?
An actual firearm, I believe. Yes. I'm going to fact check this right now like I'm fucking Donald Trump or something. Continue though, sir. I'm sorry.
He also insisted on being referred to as a midget rather than a dwarf, which annoyed his acting contemporary with a similar condition, Billy Barty, who is an activist who found that the term midget was derogatory. It's I don't know that we need a word for any other than just like, well, they're shorter, you know what I mean? Just shorter people. They're just people, you know what I mean?
Well, there was a point in this film where I forget, but the real rich fat cat guy of the group says something about kick that midget across the room or something like that, or something.
Yeah,
pay somebody money to kick that midget across the room.
Well, what's weird about this? So I've got to try and sum this movie up very quickly. So, man who's been having nightmares is inviting a group of friends round to his house, and when they all get there and they're having dinner, the people that he knows from his nightmares and his writing, one who is a dwarf, Hervé Villachez, one who's a large black guy with a scarred half his face, and one who is a very buxom woman, they show up and start to put his guests through some tests that are completely pointless, and then if they don't do them, they get murdered, or they get murdered anyway, or they get murdered for other reasons. And right at the beginning of them showing up, she says, don't ask why we're here, don't ask who we are, don't ask what we're doing, don't ask whatever. And I'm like, well, this is a great screenwriter way to get out of explaining any of this mad, hallucinogenically fueled bullshit that we're watching right now. But what's weird is all the people who show up to the party, almost all of them, horrible people, like just terrible people, vain people, lustful people, greedy people, shitty people. And so I suddenly started to think, well, this is sort of at one point, one of the characters makes reference to Faust, because I suppose you could see our leading character, Edmund Blackstone, played by Jonathan Frid, could be a sort of Faustian character. But really, it also dabbles with the seven deadly sins and especially the rich guy trying to buy his way out of being murdered by these goons. But ultimately winds up to be, I think, about a writer struggling with the idea that they need to have a family when really a creative person just wants to go away by themselves and tell a family to go fuck themselves. I think that's kind of what the subtext was here, but I don't know. Gary, let's delve into Seizure. What was your first exposure to this movie?
Just you telling me to watch it. I mean, I say, hey, let's watch this crazy film where these people exist in it. But as far as like Jonathan Frid, who most people know as Barnabas Collins from the Dark Shadows TV show, and Herbie Villachez, and Marlene Bestwick, Martine Bestwick, who plays the queen in this film, the woman character,
Breastwick,
who's in
Martine Breastwick, which is what James Spader calls her in private.
She's in tons of exploitation stuff, so I was looking forward to just these three people together, you know.
Right. No, I mean, look, it's a fantastic cast. I just think it's very muddled. But anyway, carry on, yeah.
I said, like, I explained Midsummer as one of the best romantic comedies of the year. I'll say that until the day I die, because this film, you know, much like, you know, guys before Oliver Stone, have used this as a metaphor for things. I'm not sure anything personal going on in his life, but essentially, you know, his Edmund, who's our writer, his wife. We get to the end of the film. I don't want to give too much away right now, but it seems like the greatest plot to Gone Girl your husband of all time, or just get them all divorced because essentially these characters show up out of his writings, out of his drawings. They come out of his head essentially and can come to life and terrorize these people. See, I watched this film. I enjoyed it, but the biggest takeaway I got from it, this is the films like The Strangers or Last House on the Left. This is the film they want to be like, because they try to go for that trippy stuff in Last House on the Left, but this pulls it off to the point of it's almost like psychedelic, because you don't know where these people came from. You find out you don't know why they're there. You know.
Yeah, it's weird because there's this whole bit where Martine Bestwick stands up and says, "You don't know who we are. You won't know who we are. Don't ask any questions. We are, but blah blah blah, whatever." But then later, Hervé Villachez is talking about, you know, we come from within you and we are growing within you and we will know you and all this sort of stuff. And you go, well, wait, like, what is it? Is it that you don't care about the human race, or is it that you do care about the human race? Do you need us or don't you need us? You know, it sort of starts to become a bit confusing, as does the idea that, like, well, if the only point is to just kill everyone, why in the middle of it are you like, can any of you run the 100 meters? Like, why is that important? Why is it important to have them running in the middle of the night with shaky cam and no lighting?
Well, it's kind of like films like this, films like Demons 2. You have people come to your house because he obviously was losing sleep over these bad dreams. And she says, "Hey, wake up, honey. We have people coming over." You can tell he does not want them there. You know what happens when you get party guests that you do not want? First of all, you get demons in the movie Demons 2, but you get his literal id coming into play in the form of Hervé Villachez in a
medieval one piece.
Looks like a mini Black Panther with teeth, like an eye around his neck. Pounding at the window saying that he's hungry or something, and you know, them being invaded by people, being tortured by people in a way, you know, telling them they're all going to be murdered except for one.
Also, let's talk about the fact that when it gets to the point where Mary Woronov, talk about, here's another connection, is I mentioned earlier Chopping Mall. Mary Woronov, of course, comes from the Corman School, is in Eating Raoul with Paul Bartel, and also appears with Paul Bartel in Chopping Mall. So there we go. There is a very geeky, nerdy, underground. Who the hell knows this shit about people like Mary Warrenoff kind of fact? But there it is, Gary. What do you have to say about that?
She was also a Warhol girl, which makes her, I had a conversation with her one time, but she had lots of interesting stories to tell, is all I'll say about that.
Yeah, Mary Warrenoff. Look at that right there. What a career. Also, Troy Donahue. Let's not forget about Troy Donahue in this movie. He obviously has a wonderful, long-lasting Hollywood career. Let's just talk about Troy Donahue for just a hot second. Not only was Troy Donahue in The Love Boat, as everyone was, Chips, the great TV series, Laverne and Shirley, but he was also on Fantasy Island with the other co-star from this movie, Hervé Villechaize. But he was in Low Blow, which we've covered on the show, which is by the wonderful Leo Fong. He's in Cyclone, which we've also covered on the show.
Yes, Cyclone.
He's in Fight to Win with Cynthia Rothrock. He's in... What else can we say? Assault of the Party Nerds as Sid Witherspoon. He's in Terminal Force as Slim. He's in Hot Times at Montclair High. Nudity. He's in a film called Nudity Required, Gary.
I know him the most from, and people are going to know this too, is he plays Tracy Lord's father in Crybaby, I believe.
He does.
Yes. Should we take Wanda the fuck home, is all I'll say about that one,
And earlier I mentioned, of course, the movie starring Tracy Lords that she made for PM Entertainment, the Ice franchise. I believe there's Ice and Ice 2. Starring Tracy Lords. Well, Troy Donahue was in the movie Shock 'em Dead with Tracy Lords. So
there you go.
Lots of connections here. And this is what I love about the world, Gary, is what you learn doing podcasts such as this. So the world is very small when you talk about movies. But in general, the world is pretty small these days with the social medias and everything else. Anyway, so we're in this big stately home. Some nightmare goons born of a writer's restless nights show up.
Yes, indeed.
Who the old dude, Troy Donahue, as I said earlier, both these movies have a scene in which someone sits down and explains whatever the fuck is going on. He sits down and explains in a thick, I don't know what accent that's meant to be, type European cod accent, who everyone is. They're like, well, there was this ancient guy who threatened to kill this other guy, something or other, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he was a dwarf. And you go, okay, well, he must be Hervé Villechaize then. And he went with this big African guy who was considered bad because his skin was black. And he was physically disfigured, but now he's with the dwarf and they're whatever. And then there was a woman who was buxom and filled with milk. Right? Doesn't he have this whole long spiel, Gary?
Yeah, he does. I don't remember the milk part, but that must explain why Hervé is so strong. The breast milk of Martine Beswick. Yeah.
You don't remember the milk part. The only bit. You're trying to make me look bad, Gary. You're trying to say that the only part I remembered was the milk part.
No. I mean, because if you think about it, Hervé in this film, the what do they call him? I forget now. It's the scorpion or the something that's in it, some kind of animal or something. And he is very strong. He does very agile, and you would think this from like a little like you watch like something like Willow and Warwick Davis walks a certain way. Hervé did not have that. Him and I imagine his team of little person stuntmen on this film, at least one or two, to do big things.
Yeah.
He had a real sense of power in this film.
But what do you think this movie says about Oliver Stone? Because I think we know the person by their first couple of films, don't you think?
Well, they all got to cut their teeth somewhere, and a lot of these guys, Francis Ford Coppola, Jonathan Demme, people like this, that they all cut their teeth in the exploitation genre. And this is drive-in fare at its finest, to where they say, well, we'll put this on at 2 a.m. where people are half asleep, and and this is the jumping off point, the exploitation genre, and it happens for so many of these, now big directors. So I think he's probably started as a PA somewhere on a couple of projects, and said, I'm going to make this weird film about this guy who dreams his beings into reality.
Well, it's weird, right? Because, again, not to give too much away, but the closing minutes of this movie until the final reveal, let's just say, but pre the final reveal, you think that the whole movie has basically been Jonathan Frid's character being like, you're right, before I can write what I need to write, I need to eliminate my friends and family. Because that's sort of right up until the final reveal, which we won't talk about. Yes. But that's essentially what the movie is saying. It's sure, this is a guy who halfway through the film, when the Martin Bestwick comes up to him and says, basically, you're mine and there's nothing you can do about it, like, we have to be together. Jonathan Frid is like, no, I want to be with my wife, and he sort of fights around it, and he gets a couple of hours with his wife. And then during that, they have this, I have to say, actually a pretty interesting conversation sort of about marriage and about what she's witnessed from him throughout this night of torment and other stuff like that. And I think it's it's probably the most effective moment of the film.
It pays off in the end to where,
Right.
You get that, oh no, he didn't moment.
Right, exactly. But no, I know it ultimately, but I mean, just in general throughout the film, like, she says, you're a coward, and I saw that tonight. You know what I mean? The way he was trying to get in the car and run away and not care about his son and various other things. And so sort of throughout this movie, you've got this character who we believe at the beginning of the film to be a fairly upstanding guy, if not a little tormented and a little tortured, who's inviting these people around to his house. But as we meet each of these people, especially Joseph Sorolla as Charlie Hughes, they all seem to be utterly repugnant. The Richie guy with Mary Warrenov as his sort of arm candy, who's also having it away with another guy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, everyone is either cheating on each other, trying to outspend each other, trying to show off with each other, trying to fuck each other over, whatever it is. And you kind of go, well, wait a minute, he has these terrible, terrible friends. But then at the end of the movie, you seem to think, well, was the whole message of this part of the movie, you have to really fucking kill your friends and family and loved ones and everything in order to be a true writer, whatever the fuck that means to Oliver Stone. Only for there to be sort of this flip at the very end, which I don't want to go into, but it's there. And that's where my question came from, Gary, about what do you think it says about Oliver Stone? Like, when, as someone who's tried to sit down and write a bunch of stuff in his life, I think that, and also at different parts of my life, like I tried to write feature stuff at 16, I tried to write feature stuff in my early 20s, I've tried to write feature stuff recently. And I will say that whatever you're writing, especially as your first or second or third or whatever movie, you're normally in a sort of almost naive adolescent way, kind of putting a lot of yourself into the script, probably more of it than you need to, which is why having watched The Hand a bunch of times and even talked about it on 2 different podcasts, and watching now this movie, Seizure, I think between the two, it says a lot about who Oliver Stone is if you read between some of the lines. Do you see where I'm coming from, or do you not get that feeling at all?
No, I get it. And again, a lot of these guys who write these things, you could be going through a messy breakup or something, and this is why he put that part in. Or
right.
I don't know too much about Oliver Stone, his backstory or family life or what was going on in 1974, but it's definitely like regret there to say, okay, maybe I made a mistake, because there's a point in the film where the son who's disappeared through 90% of this film is hidden somewhere, and he makes a decision that makes him seem like a real piece of shit, and he is. And you know, yeah, it's hard to say because I don't know the man personally as far as like what was going on in his life when he was writing this film.
Well, he was 28 when he made this movie. Oliver Stone was 28 when this movie came out. So 27 when he was making it. And I think that it probably has it has some of the issues that you can imagine we know Oliver Stone to be a conscientious, politically aware, I want to see the truth, sort of photojournalist style, aggressive, weird, wonderful, truth-searching kind of person from his films and from interviews that I've seen with him. Would you say that's a fair account, Gary?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. From just from the stuff I've heard later, as far as
So I think that when you're on your road to becoming a more political filmmaker, because I think he does become, once he gets to Salvador and Wall Street and some of those movies, he's becoming more of a political filmmaker. I like to watch something like Seizure or something like The Hand and try and see the measure of that guy early on, and the formation of that guy early on. There's a little bit of it in here, whether it's the, braying, annoying, greedy, I can throw 500 grand down towards an island without batting an eyelid kind of guy with the token young wife who's having it away with the other guest. There's certainly some commentary on that. And like you said, Gary, I think you're right. There's probably a little bit of either his first relationship or maybe his parents' relationship. Whenever that hardship came to him, I feel like he's put that in this movie, in this script.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, why else would it be there to say, I have abandonment issues or something along those lines?
Yeah, because I think a lot of people would be probably saying, well, he's Edmund Blackstone, he's the writer, he's the tortured artist, he's whatever. But I think Oliver Stone would probably tell you he's the kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Like feeling abandoned by a parent who, and maybe resenting the fact that as a creative, as Oliver Stone is a creative, maybe resenting the fact of how much creativity takes you away from the other important things in life, family, friends, loved one, whatever, right?
It's kind of like a morality tale. These people just turn up and torture his people. And and I mentioned to you, with the ending that you get of this film, it probably give away a little bit too. These people coming to fruition, him seeing all these things, but it's a shared psychosis. I don't know if this is real or not, unless again it all comes from dreams. It all stems from dreams, and it feels like a real Jacob's Ladder situation,
right?
Where it seems so real to him, and again, you're going back to films that this Jacob's Ladder is better than Seizure, but the ideas of Seizure, they leak other places, and I think the whole living in a reality when you're under duress, because sleeping is a big theme in this film. He's not getting enough rest. So is he seeing these things, or at least he thinks he is, because he hasn't got enough rest? But it's a shared psychosis, and it's just great because somebody gets press slammed out a window in this movie, and I'm there for it. That's yeah.
I also think, Gary, I think it's fair to say that what's really interesting about a lot of these sort of 70s horrors, not necessarily counting stuff like Texas Chainsaw or Halloween, although they're certainly part of it, but I'm thinking more of sort of the films like Seizure that are being made in the 70s that are both, they will both inform the movies that come later on, whether it's stuff like The Changeling even, or Amityville or whatever, they'll affect movies that come later on, but also are very much a part of the past, because they're sort of very much a part of the past, because there is this idea in literature and even in plays of you get everyone all in one place sort of thing and kind of play out their neuroses. And to some extent, this is sort of the filmed version of that, with a little bit of the more of the horror, because they're actually murdered, rather than in a play where they would be sort of revealed to be the monsters that they really are. In this movie, they're sort of murdered, and then you realize what monsters they were. There's a very vain woman in here that thinks that she needs to be all beautiful to go back to the afterlife with her previous husband, who she thinks is also mad at her for having a current husband as well, who wishes she was younger, etc., etc., etc. And obviously gets in trouble because of that. There's the very rich guy who gets in trouble. There's the woman who's cheating, Mary Warrenoff, who's cheating with on her husband with one of the other party guests, and each of them sort of display these behaviors that I guess need to be judged. I think that ultimately I forgive it a lot because it is a directorial debut, and therefore I sort of do forgive it a lot of its clumsiness. But there is it also as a viewer, it's very difficult to escape that clumsiness and not sort of to be hit over the head by it, because there are almost rather too many things going on in this badly that it becomes difficult to unravel. It becomes difficult to really kind of go, well, here's where the strong bit was, and here's the filmmaker Oliver Stone's going to become, and then here's all this noise and mess and nighttime shots without enough lighting of people running through woods screaming, where you're just like, what is going on and why am I watching this, and why does any of this matter? If your only purpose is that by the end of the night one of them is still alive, kill everyone now. Why are you making them run through a field? Nobody cares. Like, it's very weird.
We got to fill 90 minutes, and
right.
And people love, rich folks being tortured in films.
Yeah.
And I think Seizure itself is really intelligently written as far as like a first time effort goes.
Yes.
Because you look at a film like this, and you look at a film like House on the Edge of the Park, which has a lot of similar themes. Three derelicts, who are bad dudes, or two, I think it's two or three, I forget which one. But David Hess is one of them. Yeah. And they go and do this rich person's party, and they do this whole torturous thing. Let's mess with rich people and see how they tick, and yada, yada, yada. Now, you know where this film is better than House on the Edge of the Park is? I don't think the characters are any better, because David Hess is the man, obviously. But it doesn't phone in the ending. As far as like, you know what happens, it's kind of a morality tale that our lead is kind of a real piece of shit to his family, and this is the way almost the end almost says, hey, by the way, honey, I want a divorce the hard way, right? But House of the Park ends with, oh, by the way, psychopaths, we knew you were crazy the whole time, and now we have the upper hand. You don't get none of that bullshit in Seizure. Characters who are deplorable and they die, whether it's like a dream or not, they get dispatched, and there's no sugarcoating what happens to them. They're gonna go. It's gonna be down to one person, to the point where our main character makes a choice that ultimately backfires. Yes. And you find out what you find out at the very end of this movie, and it works. It works for me as like, for the same reason we like Phantasm, something like that. You don't know what a dream is. Am I dreaming? Is this real?
So I'll admit something. I watched this originally on VHS because that's how I came across it, which is part of the rules of this part of the After Movie Diner where we deep dive into the VHS world, which is where I pulled Seizure from, because it had a man clad in chainmail and a big leather cowl holding a battle axe, much like DragonFight did. So I thought, well, these two movies will go together, even though they are nothing like each other, I discovered. Anyway, I watched it firstly on VHS, and then I rewatched it today, hoping to find a little more insight or spark or something for me to sort of hook onto. You know, I have a tricky relationship with some of these 70s horror films, because I like I say, they lie between the two schools of horror that I truly love, and that is the old, I tend to love either the Universal horrors and the Hammer horrors, sort of the originators of both black and white and color horror film, and then the sort of late 70s, early 80s horror movies of, everything from Halloween, Evil Dead, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, all those ones. And I whenever I watch a 70s movie, I'm always like, I understand that this movie needed to be made in order for other movies down the road to be made. And I get now, with a hindsight that's important, its relevance and what Oliver Stone is trying to do. However, with all that caveat and everything, when I watch it just as a movie, and bear in mind that I've watched it twice at this point in the span of a week, I have to say that while I completely agree with Gary, it's a very intelligently written film, and while I think that there are some themes that Oliver Stone is definitely grasping at throughout the film that he will make much clearer and much better later on in his career, and while it's certainly one that's worth watching because there's some intrigue about it being Oliver Stone's first film, I have to say that it's, for me personally, Gary, that its negative points outweigh its positive for me.
Oh, it's okay. And that's fine. It's just I went into it, blind, obviously, and I found a lot of merit in it. I'm not saying it's the best thing you're going to watch all week.
Oh, no. There is a lot of merit. There's definitely a lot of merit in it. I wouldn't take that away from it, no.
For a first-time go-around, I've seen a lot of worse first-time efforts that don't make any sense, and a lot of ones that knock it out of the park. This is more like a bunch single to third, and it works, but it's very silly in parts, because until you find out what these things are, where they came from, which is essentially the finale of the film. You find out, okay, this is what's going on. You're like, why is this black manservant just throwing people out of windows and stuff with no motivation?
Right.
But then again, you go into new stuff like the strangers, like, why are you attacking us? Because you were home. It's that simple. It's kind of like the House at the Edge of the Park. Well, why are you here? Because you guys are rich assholes, and we want to torture you.
Right, which I totally understand, except that what he has her do in this movie is has her stand there and go, "You will not know why we are here. You will not know who we are. You will not." And I'm like, you're laboring the point a bit there, Oliver. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And do all these tasks, and
and then you have to have the old dude with the mustache sit down and be like, "So there was a dwarf who was angry at somebody," tell the story, and you kind of go, what? If you'd written this slightly better, Oliver, you wouldn't need to have two scenes in it in which people just explain exactly what's happening.
Now, that exposition I didn't need. So I would call that a major flaw of the film, because if you just knew without knowing, or just I had to go around with it without knowing what their motives were.
But we didn't know who any of them were.
I know, but I didn't need to know a whole spiel about. Then there was a dwarf, and he ran with a large black man who did this, that, and the other.
No, I agree. That was heavy-handed. That was.
Yeah, I didn't need that explanation, and that's one of the biggest things I find in new horror films that I hate the most is that they have to explain everything for the whole audience.
Well, that's because they've retconned a bunch of sequels that everyone really liked and are trying to make their own sequels because they're arrogant assholes. Anyway, so they have to explain what they're doing because people watching the movie are like, wait, didn't this happen in part 6? What the hell is happening? And they're like, no, we retconned it. There is no part 6 now. And you're like, how can I watch this movie not knowing about part 6 when I've watched part 6 a ton? And they're like, why have you watched part 6 a ton? I'm like, because the producer's cut has a lot more Donald Pleasance in it and is fucking awesome. That's why, because Donald Pleasance is better than anything that Rob Zombie or David Gordon Green will ever do. Thank you very much. Good night. Goodbye. I have no time for your retconning antics, DGG, or whatever your name is. Anyway, so yeah, Seizure, it's I don't know. I have some major writing issues with it. The first is it doesn't establish any of the characters. So we don't even really know that Jonathan Frid is an author until way, way, way into it. Right? It literally starts with him waking up from a nightmare and everyone sort of talking vaguely about these nightmares. It never establishes who he is, whether, who his wife is, how long they've been married. None of that is, and then these people start showing up. Well, in fact, some people are already there because it cuts downstairs to his house and he's like, sister dearest, I don't want to have to deal with all these people. I'm like, whose sister? Are you his sister? Are you the author's sister? What sister are you? What are you talking about? And who are you? And what are you? And then there's two other people making whoopee in the other room, Mary Warnoff and some young guy. And you're like, wait, am I meant to know who these two people are? Wait, she's the wife of the guy who was just screaming at the gas attendant? When was that established? So, there was all this problem that I had with the beginning. Now, obviously, as the movie goes on, you sort of learn about all that. And you might be like, well, John, why are you asking for all the answers up front? And I'm like, well, because for what happens next to have any weight, I need to know and at least like a little bit of some of these characters. And I didn't know them or like them by the time all hell broke loose.
Oh, I get it totally. You're not wrong about any of that. Like I said, it's a rank amateur at this point. But yeah, it's as far as like a writer goes and left a lot of stuff out or on the cutting room floor or whatever, I've never been a filmmaker myself, but I imagine there's a lot of stuff that they felt was not important, so they took out of the movie.
Right, and maybe for pacing issues, yeah.
Yeah. But you got that little bit, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, and one thing I will not complain about, one thing I thought that was really good about this movie is it barrels along. It doesn't hang around for too long.
No. But yeah, you get that. I mean, you got to care about characters. You talked about MG earlier and Hellmaster. One of the biggest strengths that his most popular film, Dawn of the Dead, has obviously is that you have 4 people and you get to know them. So when one of them dies, you feel really bad because you've been in tow with this character this whole time.
Yeah.
This film has none of that. You just know that the old guy's a rich piece of shit who happens to be a pedophile at best because he's feeling that young girl.
Right.
So you want this guy to die. But besides him, you really don't have any people in the film to say, this person deserves to die.
Well, the guy in the red top and the bell-bottom jeans who was sat very wide-legged and loosely on the couch complaining to Sister Dearest, whoever the hell that was, about the guests that were coming that weekend. I pretty much wanted him to die, or at least get a repeatedly heavy cock punch for about 10 minutes.
Yep, exactly.
I just wanted him to be repeatedly kicked in the cock, is what I'm saying, Gary. That's really what I'm saying. Is fuck that guy. And then what about Mary Warnoff when given the chance with the dagger to fight to the death, Kirk and Spock style?
Love it.
She's all ready for it. She's all about to fucking she's like, Jonathan Frid, fuck you. I'm getting some of those rich man ducats because I was fucking him when he died. And so I'm going to get some of this rich shit. So I'm going to stab you. And Jonathan Frid is like, fuck you, bitch. I'm the hero of this movie. And kills her instead.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those. She's been around the block more than twice, and this is desperation time.
More than twice in this movie, I think.
Yes, is kill or be killed at this point. So
Yeah.
why not go for gold there?
Well, because you're a good person and you think that mythical people coming through windows demanding that we do ridiculous contests in order to see who was alive is mental, and we should probably all just take a deep breath and assess what's actually going on here, which is that Jonathan Frid hates all of us and wants to kill all of us.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the moral of the story there, yeah.
Yeah.
Barnabas Collins hates house guests, okay?
The other way to look at it is also, the movie's called Seizure, right? And one of the video covers of the movie actually uses the screaming and heart palpitation getting old rich dude, Joseph Sorolla, on the front cover that makes it look like he's having a heart attack because at one point in the movie he kind of clutches his chest and falls to the floor. The other way to look at this movie, especially with the ending such as it is I'm going to let my life flash before my eyes, and as my life flashes before my eyes, I'm going to regret that I spent all this time with these people and not more time writing my book.
Yeah, because the cat's in the cradle and the little person, strong man, that's how it works.
Is that the cat's in the cradle, little person, strong man? Come on, we all know how that goes. Yeah, We've all been there.
He didn't have time for his son, so he created some new friends, and those new friends, murdered people, and
those new friends killed everyone he apparently cared about.
Because he just had his son tucked away in an attic somewhere and forgot about him until it's time for murder time.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this movie, and I don't know that it lands nails the landing. I'm not going to. Here's an interesting thing. If DragonFight is a 2-star movie but a keeper, Seizure is a 3-star movie, but I don't need to keep it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It all depends on your perspective and other films like this. I just like they took out that one thing where they're just explaining all these supposedly mythological beings that were torturing them. I think it goes up to a 3 stars, and I'll keep that in my collection as like a timepiece, but I won't go back to it, too often. But I think this is the better of some of those, a lot of those home invasion movies, in my opinion, because it goes for the teeth, and it has the ending that says it's kind of like ironic, like you've been a piece of shit for years, and now this is your punishment. This never ending Ash Williams type nightmare that's how I explain Evil Dead 2 to people that say, oh, I don't like Evil Dead 2 because it's not like it does the same things it does in Evil Dead 1. Do you ever think that maybe this is just Ash's continuous nightmare that people they just keep putting him through, with a new set of people every time?
Which is the Phantasm fan in you coming out and explaining these franchises that way, because yes, I think that it can definitely be interpreted that way. I think that, and I see where Seizure sits in the history of horror, and therefore, I would give it more stars because I think it should be better known. I think we can definitely say that it should be better known, and it was one of those that sort of pointed the way to what was going to happen in the future in horror, especially. And so you have to give it credit as sort of an embryonic thing for the horror genre. And I don't discount the way you look at it as a sort of home invasion movie, sort of a fantasy home invasion movie. I think that there's too much cockiness as a writer in Oliver Stone that bothers me a little bit. But the young often write that way, so it's to be expected, I suppose. I liked it. As I said, it's 3 stars. I don't know, having seen it twice, that I ever need to see it again.
Yeah, I get that. I just like. I like that I saw it though, and it's not like something I would go back to and say, "Hey, you know what's a really dynamite film you should watch? Go watch Seizure. It's Oliver Stone's first directorial thing, and it's really terrific." But in somebody else's eyes, they may get about 20 minutes into it and say, "Well, I'm turning this off now." But there's a lot of unintentional subtext, I guess, and a lot of good things that happen in the film, as far as smart things that happen in the film. So I'd say 3 stars too, and I would leave that on my shelf and let it collect dust for a while until I said, "Hey, maybe I'll watch Seizure again."
Yeah, I think it's one that I would recommend, but not one that I would watch again, if that makes any sense.
Oh, no, totally.
I think that people should seek it out and watch it and live through it and sit with it for a while and think about it for a while and then sort of go, right, but what did it ultimately achieve? And I think that we wouldn't come up with very much, but it's part of, if you're trying to fill in the blanks of 70s horror that led us to the more famous stuff we are used to and that we talk about more frequently, Seizure should be part of your viewing. That's fair, right?
Yeah, the roots are there, man, for sure. And just then, I'm sure if Quentin Tarantino decided to make a home invasion film, he would say, "Hey, I seen Seizure on 35 millimeter in my fucking basement, and let's make a film as trippy as Seizure, but for today's audiences, just drop the ball."
No, you're right. Seizure is totally the movie that Tarantino would name drop. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, "Well, you haven't seen Seizure with fucking blah 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 and Troy Donahue and blah, blah, blah." Like Seizure would totally be a movie that Tarantino would want to name drop to seem fucking, you know what I mean? Like, can you believe the guy who made Seizure ended up making Natural Born Killers? Fucking, like he'd have all the fucking Tarantino bullshit about it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah. And I'm not saying if you watch Seizure it makes you a hipster douche, nothing like that. It's just, this is something he would, use and I'm using air quotes here, John can't see them, inspiration to make his own exploitation film like
1,000%.
Such.
1,000%. I both love and hate the commentary that him and Edgar Wright did for Hot Fuzz, because it was so much like name dropping and one-upmanship of movie fandom. You know what I mean? But I both love that because I love movie fandom and hate it for all its hipster, like, oh, look, we're referencing Brannigan. Oh, doesn't that make us knowledgeable about cinema or whatever? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll go with that, and then I'll go to, there's a podcast, if you don't know, Joe Dante, and,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, he does a shit, Josh Olson.
Yeah.
He wrote The History of Violence, which I think is top 3 Cronenberg for me. He did a show called Movies That Made Me, and he was the guest on their 100th episode, Edgar Wright, and he talks about choice of music drops, his top 10 music drops in film, and he does that brilliantly. I mean, say what you want about Baby Driver. I know it's not that great of his greatest work in the world, but if you watch it and you listen to that conversation, you can see him as a filmmaker, dropping these things where they're supposed to go, these music cues, and it's kind of brilliant.
It is, but as one of my Instagram videos showed, that the music drop of, especially when it's scoring an action sequence, while a lot of people nowadays credit, obviously people like Edgar Wright and Matthew Vaughn.
Martin Scorsese.
Well, Martin Scorsese definitely, but in terms of scoring action sequences specifically, you've got Edgar Wright, you've got Matthew Vaughn from the Kingsman franchise. You've got obviously James Gunn with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and I think that what we all need to remember is that the first movie to score an action sequence with a popular song of this kind was, of course, the opening pre-credit Bond action sequence in View to a Kill.
Yes.
Where Roger Moore skates or surfs or skis down a snowy mountain to the strains of the Beach Boys. And so if you think that is naff and stupid and silly and goofy and doesn't quite work and isn't very good and was probably a boneheaded idea by the studio trying to cross-promote an album that nobody was buying with a movie that nobody wanted to watch, then you're probably correct. But also, it's probably a genius. Like, you just don't know. It's one of those things that you watch that you go, is it genius or is it completely awful? Most of the time I fall on the side of completely awful, but the genius part is still there. And I think this is the line that movies like Seizure and other films walk.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh! Yeah, but I had a good time with this. I again, it's a 3. Keep it on your shelf and let it collect some dust for a while. Like maybe 10 years later, watch Seizure again and say, I remember its flaws, but I also remember why I liked it. You know?
Yeah, I think now I will say this to people watching: it is available, I believe, on Tubi or YouTube, one of the two, if you look it up. And there is clearly a cleaner print of it out there because what they had streaming that I watched this afternoon is a lot better than what I watched on VHS, where it was, pretty muddy as a VHS. And therefore, a lot of the filmed at night sequences were very difficult to ascertain exactly what was happening. Mm-hmm. Whereas on the print that I saw online, it was a little clearer. I would love to see a brightened up version, like a little color temp done on this. I feel like my other problem with the movie was that I felt it sort of be perpetually gloomy. I couldn't quite always tell what was going on, where it was going on, why it was happening, etc., etc. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, this is made for Vinegar Syndrome or Severin to put out one day. It'll happen.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, I'm also conscious to not always sort of play to the idea that there are these 100% like lost classics or whatever. I was watching a movie recently that everyone had sort of talked up to me as sort of a changeling type. This is a ghost story movie that you absolutely have to see, that you haven't seen, etc., 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 called Burnt Offerings with Oliver Reed and Karen Black.
Betty Davis, too.
Yeah, and Betty Davis. And it was one of those where I'm like, I watched it and I'm like, nope, this doesn't, I don't need this to exist. I know it does exist and it's fine, but this isn't telling me anything or showing me anything or, exciting me about anything. This seems to be a movie very much stuck in its past without really justifying its future, if that makes any sense.
Well, the ending of Burnt Offerings, you know who does that better, like years later? Is the Sentinel. Michael Ritchie's Sentinel does a lot better.
Right.
Yeah, that idea.
Yes. No, completely. But again, I don't know. When I think about Seizure and I think about either the movies that came before or after it, I just don't know. I don't know how much I care.
Yeah, I mean, everything's gotta have its roots. You know, I can't say the people that make those home invasion films have seen Seizure, but they know they've read crime stories, you know, similar to, you know, minus the mythical characters,
right?
That has happened in real life to people. But yeah, everything's gonna have a start, and this isn't the first home invasion film ever conceived, but
yeah,
it's definitely one of the early exploitation ones that inspired a lot of things, whether they know it or not, you know.
So Gary, I'm gonna read you my review from when I first watched this movie.
Gotcha.
And I just want you to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this one is most certainly a curio. If it's Oliver Stone's first movie, and much like The Hand, where he's not so concerned about the horror of it, and rather the way the accident affects the man and the artist, so does Seizure eventually wind up being about what will an artist sacrifice in terms of family and friends to get their work done. Or at least that's what I'm assuming from the final act of the movie, because before then, it is one of the most confusing, bizarre, badly edited, downright silly, and even childish approximation of what dream villains might even be. At one point, thankfully, some doddery bastard with a big mustache basically explains what is happening, but without that scene, I'd have been lost and spent the whole time thinking, why is Hervé Villachez a weird joke store costume-wearing heavy and a woman who wishes she was Elvira bothering these poor people? Not that we know anything about these people. I mean, if I hadn't read the cover of the video, I'm not sure I'd have even known that the lead dude was meant to be an author. There is a scene right at the beginning where some loudmouth rich guy threatens a blue-collar gas station attendant. Are we meant to be glad that we're following this snob fucker and happy when he dies? Who knows? The first half of this movie is utterly whacked out and bizarre. It saves itself a little in the last act, but not enough.
Yeah, I agree. I agree totally, you know, because it is a mess, and the ending is kind of not really kind of shoehorned in, because at the end of the day, you know, our writer is just a guy who needs healthy sleep habits, and he doesn't get them, and, you know, essentially, you know, a piece of shit to his wife and son. So what happens to him in the end, it's almost like she walks out like she's a new woman, like she's like a sigh of relief, like, yes, we're free. But it's so weird. I believe the ending of this than I do the ending of Magic with Anthony Hopkins and Margaret, because there's that scene of ennui at the end where Anne Margaret just walks out and starts smiling for no reason. Now, the problem I have with that movie is the end itself is like, is Anne Margaret fucking with him this whole time with this dummy? Is she messing with his brain? Or is she just like, hey, look, he's finally free of his psychosis with this dummy, so I'm just going to smile and go play in the leaves for a while and then fade to black, you know,
right.
A movie which I really enjoyed until right at that moment, you know.
Yeah. No, I understand. But it's made us think, it's made us talk, it's made us love, it's made us scared, it's made us run for the hills, and it's made us scream into the toilet bowl of our life, why am I doing this, Margaret? Gary, I have to say, sir, this has been a thrill. Thank you so much for this, joining me on this inaugural Michael Paré and VHS deep dive journey that we will repeat again, I hope, in a couple of weeks for the Cinema Beef podcast. How have you felt that it's gone, and did you wish that I shut the fuck up? No.
When you and me get together, you get like similar to me and X. You get tangents. You get dirty jokes. You get just two guys who are friends and brothers having fun. You know, talking. We had a whole conversation off show here. You know, through text that said, you know, about therapeutic this kind of stuff can be, and you know, when we're feeling down, we enjoy each other's company. So why not get together and talk about some stupid stuff like Seizure and
right?
You know, try to find merit in it. You know.
But you know what, Gary? I think it's beautiful because I have to say, when I first started podcasting, almost 13 years ago now. When I first started podcasting, it was one of those things where the connections that I made with the people online that then led to me discovering more of my movie palette, right? Discovering movies that I hadn't seen or heard of before, whether that was shot on video stuff or whether that was straight to video action stuff or whether that was weird little corners of the horror franchises or whatever it was. I have to say that while I was a huge movie fan, it wasn't until I started podcasting that my taste expanded into the weird and wonderful corners that it now lives in. In fact, I'm more likely to put on a movie like DragonFight and Seizure any night of the week than I am putting on, E.T. and Indiana Jones or Back to the Future and The Thing or whatever. Like, I've seen those movies a lot and I will put them on again. But I remember when I started watching movies for the After Movie Diner and getting to know Mo and getting to know you and getting to know Doc, Paul Croson and various people and Dave DeMoss out in Oregon, who I got to know through this wonderful medium. I expanded my movie watching, and we've gone through a lot of different times in the diner, and we've watched a lot of different things, whether it was the years of going to the actual diner with Jim and watching brand new movies that had just come out, or whether it was going way back and talking about fan favorites like the John Carpenter and Kurt Russell and other people. I'm liking right now where I'm at. I'm liking that I am rediscovering and discovering again my love of whether it's 70s, 80s, or 90s VHS, and just finding some of those movies that you're like, well, shit, man, this is where all those things that we love actually come from. Like, let's spend some time in that world, you know what I mean? Like, this shit informed the next stuff, which informed the next stuff, which informed the next stuff. And, in order for John Wick to run, then, Robert Z'Dar had to don heavy chainmail and go to Vasquez Rocks in Northern California and walk in order for, John Wick to run. So I love the history we find out about from these movies. I love deep diving and going into who did what and how and whatever. And I love how they connect to each other, and I love how the conversation continues. So going forward with the After Movie Diner, I feel more excited about movie podcasting than I've done in probably 5 years. What about you, Gary? You feeling that pumped excitement again for this weird little corner of the world?
Yeah, because it gives you chances to, I hate to say do some deep research on some stuff, but find stuff and that you never seen before, like, they made that, which is why I dove into the Paré world there, to say, hey, let's do that, because he did some wacky shit.
Yeah, man. I want to figure out what Paré's career trajectory was.
And there's always that, and finding new stuff. Again, social media is not always an unhealthy place, and sometimes you find like-minded people that turn you on to the stuff that you've never seen. So and
all roads lead back to silk stockings. Trust me.
Oh yeah, all roads lead back to silk stockings. Yeah.
Seriously, if you watch a B movie in the 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s, and you do a deep dive on either one of the actors in it, the director on it, or the music supervisor on it, you will find a connection to silk stockings. I'm telling you, it is the thing that connects all the roads of all of the things that I love. So I'm going to start watching silk stockings and reporting back. But no, in general, I've always said this, and I'll continue to say this. Whether I do a deep dive on actors, deep dive on directors, or a deep dive just into, VHS movies or movies that I assumed went straight to video or movies I've never heard of before, like whatever I group them in, when I do a deep dive on that, when I go, okay, I'm going to watch 10 movies in a row that I own but I've never seen. Why do I own these movies? Put them on, you know what I mean? Whenever I do that, I always discover another corner of the world that I love, and another corner of the world that can tap me into something that I'm passionate about, whether it's stunt performers like DragonFight, and the fact that a stunt performer got the ability to direct a movie and do what they wanted to do with it, even if I wasn't like super into it. I like discovering that, and I like championing that. Similarly, Oliver Stone, there's this incredible director who would in some ways define a lot of pivotal moments in the 20th century with his films. And, here he is making I'm not sure my father ever loved me Faustian tale about the 7 deadly sins via a prism of Jacob's ladder, which is, quite a lot to say in one sentence.
It is. It really is. It's all there, though.
It is all there. So, I wouldn't have watched either of these movies if it wasn't for this podcast. So I just have to say, Gary, thank you so much. We will do this again. I hope you had a good time. I love you. This was great. I love discovering these films. Makes me happy. And I'm enjoying being a podcaster again. I wasn't for years, but now I'm enjoying it again.
Yes, it's supposed to get there, man. That podcaster, the podcasting shits, if you will. Where you see a lot of these podcasts, and I respect them for doing this. They do so much franchise stuff, and it's like there's nothing out there. But I see like other podcasts, like the Horror Returns, will mix something with a new thing that's something I've never seen before, and I'll say, "Wow, I'll watch that," but I want to watch the film first before I go listen.
Right.
So if you see this pop up in your feed, Go watch these films somewhere. DragonFight's on YouTube.
Seizure's on YouTube as well.
Seizure's on YouTube as well. Go watch these first and then listen, and then see if you share our opinions.
Right.
If not, that's okay. Those are new views,
But I remember back in the day when we would cover movies like Low Blow, which came up weirdly enough tonight because of Warren Stevens. We would cover stuff like Low Blow and The Patriot, and not The Patriot that you know with Mel Gibson, and not The Patriot that you know with, is there Mark Wahlberg's done a Patriot movie, or is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, there are lots of Patriot movies, but this is the one with Greg Henry, and you're like, Greg Henry, and you're like, yeah, the guy that James Gunn keeps putting in lots of movies, Greg Henry. Like, was James Gunn a secret lover of the movie The Patriot with Greg Henry? Which I think also has Leslie Nielsen in it, I think, if I remember correctly. But we used to do movies and episodes like that on the Diner, and I love that because I think I got into movie podcasting to find my people, but also to find my films and to find things that I'm like, there's that movie podcast, How Did This Get Made? And they cover movies where I'm like, I can explain to you exactly how that movie got made in 5 minutes. These are not movies that should be on like they do Roadhouse or Point Break or Fast and the Furious or Howard the Duck. And I'm like, I could tell you how all those movies got made. None of those, like the behind the scenes movies of stories of any of those movies are not particularly interesting. But I bet you fucking the behind the scenes story about Seizure is fucking fascinating. And the behind the scenes story of DragonFight is probably riveting compared to How Did This Get Made, fucking, whatever they cover on that show. I don't know. But you know what I'm saying, Gary, right? They cover more popular stuff, right?
They find movies sometimes they don't find, they have researchers for this, which, I wish my research team was as tedious as theirs, but they stand there and I love how this can make that. I love the TV show The League with those people on there, and they make fun of films. We're not really doing that here. It's just we're just seeing merit and seeing the faults of these films and not really dwelling on that, because it's so easy for these people to dwell on how terrible this is, when it's not really justified, or how terrible this is when, again, it's not justified. But
right, but a lot of the time when they are reviewing stuff on How Did This Get Made, No, okay, they're not strictly just doing A-list stuff, but they're doing stuff that I would consider most people, if they consider themselves a passing film fan, will know about. They're, just to look at previous, they've done The Running Man and Striptease and Troll 2 and Garbage Pail Kids, the movie, and Communion and The Master of Disguise and Van Helsing. Like, movies that I consider, sure, okay, they have like a cult niche, I understand, but there isn't one of those movies that I go, wait, how did this get made? Whereas when I look at Dragon Fighter, I'd go, how did this get made? Like, what the fuck? How did this get made? Like, what made someone go, Warren Stevens, you get to make a movie now? You know what I mean? Like, I want to know what that decision was.
Yeah, one day you'll get one of those, like, I don't even know if he's still alive or not, but, like, one of those commentaries with the supervisor and the director to tell you more stories of Dragon Fight on that Severin or Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray that doesn't exist yet, but may exist in, like, 5 years or something. But, not right now, though, but I'm looking forward to hearing that and checking that out,
Right. I guess so, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. It's they either seem to do it's easy to shoot fish in a barrel type movies like Samurai Cop, or they do stuff that I go, sure, okay, it's a little weird, but I know why it got made.
Mm-hmm. Well, like, we know why all those Sword and Sandal films were made, like, in the early 80s. They're built on the backs. They're made on the backs of Conan. You know how popular that was. So they made so many of those movies, and Mad Max is popular. So they made so many films that were just like Mad Max. But a film like Dragon Fight, which was made in probably filmed in '89, which was on the tail end of these. That Sword and Sandal crazy. It was even over even. It's really out of place in 1990. But you know what? You're kind of there for it because there's lots of unique action plots. There's one we covered, I forget now what it's called, A Ring of Steel, to where it was like a fight to the death like tournament movie, but they were using like rapiers and shit.
Yeah.
They were sword fighting shirtless and stuff. That's got Joe Don Baker in it.
Of course it does.
But yeah, the movies like that, you're like, well, how did that happen? Like, yeah, somebody wrote a script, and I think in that case you knew a little bit about it because the guy was like a sword fighting champion or something. So he wanted to make a sword fighting action movie.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. There was a ton of action movies like that in the 80s and early 90s that, it's interesting. It starts off with the big guys, so it starts off with people like Seagal and Van Damme, meaning people who were perceived of having some kind of martial arts prowess, sort of suddenly becoming big leaders in Hollywood, kind of hitching their wagon to the more bodybuilding muscle men of like Stallone and Schwarzenegger, and obviously the sort of wisecracking of Mel Gibson and Bruce Willis. And they look for these martial artists that sort of combine these talents. And, you go all through from Jean-Claude Van Damme to Steven Seagal to then, your B tier, whether that's Jeff Speakman, Gary Daniels, Don the Dragon Wilson, Cynthia Rothrock, et cetera, and then you've got people like Joe Lara and some of the PM Entertainment guys who are going to be doing some stuff. And then, you get further down and further down, you keep going, and you get some of these other actors who are trying to do that kind of martial arts stuff without quite being martial artists. But like you say, you get people who are swordsmen who are suddenly like, well, if martial arts has had their day, what about swordsmen? Let's get a few swordsman movies. And Hollywood and even B Hollywood loves a trend as far as it can stretch it. And then just as it's about to snap, or maybe sometimes even after it's snapped quite horrendously, they will give up on it and move over to something else. Right now I feel like we're at a crossroads at the end of the kind of superhero, people can't die, rubber bodies bouncing off stuff, sort of John Wick, Fast and Furious, Marvel, DC. We're sort of at the end, the death knell of that stuff.
I think what we're going for here is, the world we live in now, everything's predictable. You're going to have, once something's successful, you're going to have fucking 5 sequels, like Fast and Furious.
Right.
But you watch something like DragonFight, you're watching it, you're like, this is so absurd.
You're watching it and you're going, I hope they never make a sequel of it.
No, it's not even that with me, but you watch it and you're like, well, there's something you don't see every day. You're like, fuck, this is unique. This is why you watch stuff like DragonFight. Not the fact that it's the best thing you're gonna watch all week, but it was fucking unique. And, I can't say that about many mainstream films today. To say fuck, that was unique.
True,
I can't do it.
And like I say, whenever I do this deep dive, I don't know if I finished this earlier when I was talking about this, but whenever I do this deep dive into whatever area that I'm poking around in, I always find a gem. I always find something worth having seen. And what's nice about these two movies is, while if you came over to my house for a horror movie weekend in a year or two and I wanted to show you some stuff you've probably never seen, would I put on either of these movies? I don't know. Possibly Seizure, but possibly not. In general, probably neither of these movies would make it onto my let me show my friends some of my favorite discoveries. But they are decent enough and good enough that they have kept us talking. They have kept us interested, that we have continued to try and unpack them, and that we see their relevance where they sit in the history of movies.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're goofy as hell, or they all their place in the world, and I think that we discover more and more stuff like this, and I think it makes your palate even bigger. No matter how good or bad you think it is, people think it is. It's just it's unique to you, and I can appreciate films like these, even though they're not perfect.
Yeah, and it's odd because I think for years and years I was in a place where if I put a movie on, it had to do a bunch of stuff for me. It had to sort of be the perfect movie for that moment. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't kind of get back to that place that I used to be at when I was younger, of sort of just watching movies for the sort of the grungy, weird enjoyment of just watching movies. And I think that doing the Pam Grier show that we did, doing the Wings Hauser show that we did, doing some of the John Belushi shows that we did, and now doing last week's show with the Soldier and the Ring, and this week's show with DragonFight and Seizure, I think that the message I want to depart is that not only am I enjoying it more, and therefore I'm enjoying talking about it more, therefore I'm enjoying reaching out and getting better people on the show and sharing that with my friends and stuff, but also I hope that it encourages the audience to track these films down and have their own experiences with them, because otherwise what's the point? Like I want people to be intrigued enough that they go out and find these films, at least for the hour and a half that it takes to watch them. I really hope that they do, because I think both of them are worth your time, even if both of them are compromised and messy.
And Tubi's a fine source for that, and I'll explain why. Because it has become like the new popular thing. It's become the new Netflix, in the sense that people discover stuff like Seizure on Tubi, and they'll recommend it to a friend, and then they'll talk about it and say, "Hey, you guys should watch the Snake Eater series on Tubi because it's there." but it's almost like a ready source. And I don't work for Tubi. I don't get paid by Tubi. Just throwing it out there. But it is a ready source of good prints of supposedly bad shit. You know.
No, I agree. I think this is where I find it very interesting. I tend to watch films on Tubi after I've heard about them on VHS, which is a weird way round of doing it. I tend to go, well, I have this movie on VHS, or I've heard about this movie on VHS, or someone was talking about this movie on a podcast, or I saw this movie on a blog. And when I Google that movie, it happens to be on Tubi. Rarely am I just scrolling through Tubi and find exactly what I want to watch. That never happens. No. But if I know that I want to watch a certain thing, I guarantee that most of the time that stuff is on Tubi. So it's weird because physical media is still the way that I come to things. I still don't think streaming has at any point cracked the code when it comes to delivering me in my to watch pile or my recommended for you pile or whatever you want to call it. I don't think we've got there yet where a streaming service actually understands what it is I want to watch, because and also I don't have the time anymore to scroll through 4,000 movies and add them to a playlist. So I tend to come to movies still through physical media. How about yourself? Wow. Have you figured out a good way to use streaming in order to discover new shit? I mean, rather than just rewatch old stuff.
Much like you, I hear about things and then I go look to see where it's streaming. Either you have a copy available or you don't.
Right.
There's some freaking guy in Bismarck, North Dakota, that uploaded this exploitation gem that's not anywhere else, and then you can go to YouTube and watch it. I guess illegally, I guess you would call it.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Royalties. Yeah. But it's there, and again, this is how you discover things, new things, old things that are new to you.
But again, I think if you were the sort of person who is tracking down weird B movies on YouTube and watching them, I don't know about you, Gary, but like the number of stuff I've watched on YouTube and then gone, hey, that was really good, I should buy it. And then I've looked up, is there a Blu-ray? Is there a DVD? Is there a VHS? And I've gone out and tried to buy that. Like, for example, the PM Entertainment films. Most of them are available on YouTube. I could just watch them on YouTube. But actually, as I watch them, I then go out and try and find them on VHS and DVD because I want to own them. Like most stuff on YouTube, I understand that it's quote-unquote illegal, but to some extent it's giving life to these movies that wouldn't have a life otherwise and wouldn't be talked about otherwise. This is true. It's very true. And so, I don't know which side of the world you fall when it comes to stuff like that. But I just think that as long as you are, as I think both you and I are, Gary, putting back into the industry that you love in some way, lots of ways, more ways than one, whatever, and we both are, I believe, then I think we're good karmically.
Well, do you remember, is it watching a film, preserving a film's memory? Yes, it is, because you live in a world where people are throwing camera negatives in the dumpster, like it's garbage. Somebody's film they took time to make, they're literally throwing it in a dumpster.
Oh, And I've been in many VHS groups on Facebook where the most common question is, hey, can anyone in this group name this movie? I was watching it late night one time on TV and I saw a movie in which X happened. Mm-hmm. And, these people who are preserving on VHS or DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, these movies that we thought lost in time, are preserving memories of people who are like Wacko was one for me. The movie Wacko with Joe Don Baker.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
For years and years and years and years and years and years and years, there was no way to get hold of that movie in the UK. I had seen it on VHS when I was in my teens at some point, and it was one of those that had been recorded off TV and sort of talked about in hushed tones. And my friend was like, oh, I think I have a copy of that. And then we put it on and I watched it and I was like, what the hell is this? It's so weird and goofy, and it's not, I could tell instantly that it wasn't like polished like Naked Gun or Airplane or one of the bigger budget spoofs. I knew that it was sort of a weird, scrappy, low budget spoof. But it was one of those movies that stuck with me and stuck with me and stuck with me until, I used to go in, there was a exported DVD that you could buy at, some of the much, much bigger HMVs in England. HMV was sort of like our Tower Records or Circuit City or Best Buy or whatever you want to call it. Virgin Megastore, whatever you want to call it. And some of the bigger ones in London would have a copy of Wacko on import DVD at like 30 quid. And that was 30 quid back in like the 90s. So that's like fucking 100 quid right now. And so I never bought it, but I kind of knew it was out there. Like it was, I discovered it when I was in my early teens. I then figured out in my early 20s that it was still sort of out there, but you had to buy it on import DVD at exorbitant prices. This was obviously before eBay and YouTube and all that other stuff. And then eventually when the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray came out, I was like, I'm all over that, because it's one of those movies that I have a visceral memory of that movie in the way that people have memories of dreams or nightmares or, things that may or may not have happened to them with aliens, being probed. That's how I felt about the movie Wacko. And now I own it. Now it's on my shelf. Now I feel like I've succeeded. And there's part of me that is happy about that. And then there's part of me that's like, I kind of like the mystique.
Yeah, for sure. But again, you're welcome. You welcome it. That's wide available for people. Not too wide, but you have a copy to show a friend. The Master Thespian, Andrew Dice Clay's first performance, and how much potential he showed in that movie to be a comedic, icon.
Right.
Because even then he got ooze cool.
Right. Why did Chevy Chase have such a fast decline from glory? That kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, anyway, Gary, thank you for joining me down this interesting walk through VHS's gone by and movies that time have forgotten. Thank you for putting forward your opinions and responding. Let everyone know where they can find you, where they can hear you, what they should follow, what they should do, and why you are one of the greatest of all time.
I wouldn't call myself the greatest of all time or anything. Go find the shows on the Butcher Shop on LegionPodcasts.com and on whatever pod feeder you have. Go join the Legion Patreon, if you will, $2 a month. Patreon.com/Legion Podcasts. You get extra material there, some from Night Camp, including the bonus episodes of Last Call of Torchies, which is a show me and the fellas do about Walter Hill films. I've been doing a long time, and I appreciate all this good stuff. And I have a banner idea for the next episode, and I'll talk to John about it off the air. But it's gonna involve some role reversals, and I think it'd be a good time because I've been itching to talk about John, this film with John, and I think it would fit more in his VHS, and he could pick a Paré jam for us to talk about for sure.
Oh, so you have a VHS jam for me, and I've got to pick the Paré next time.
Yes, that'd be kind of fun. I have. Yeah,
we're flipping it. We'll
flip it this time. Yeah, for sure.
Flip me for real. Okay. All right. We'll talk about that off air. But thanks ever so much, Gary Hill, for being on the show. Everyone, check out the Butcher Shop series of podcasts on Legion Podcasts, and follow wherever Beards and Cinema Beef can be found.
Excellent.
And Michael Paré, man, I'm looking at his IMDb. He has 216 credits, no slouch.
Still working, too.
Still working, dude. Do you know how many movies he put out in 2023? 13 movies and a TV episode.
Wow, that's nuts.
Right, including a movie called Alien Apocalypse, when there's already been at least 3 movies called Alien Apocalypse.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And Bruce Campbell's in at least 2 of them, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. At least one that I know of for sure.
But yeah, Michael Paré, we have got a lot of movies to get through. If we go back, though, back to his heyday, what was one of the... Oh, this was one that I was thinking of doing. Instant Justice, directed by Dennis Amar and written by Craig T. Rumar, stars Michael Paré and Tawny Kitaen, or Kitaen, however you want to pronounce her last name. Instant Justice, and it's got Mr. Napier in it again.
There you go.
So that was one that I was looking at. That's sort of where my head is at right now. I don't know what this is. World Gone Wild. Let's have a quick look at this from 1987.
Oh, I know what this is.
Yeah, in a nuclear-ravaged wasteland of Earth, 2087. Water is as precious as life itself. The isolated Lost Worlds outpost, blah, 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 blah. It's got Bruce Dern in it, Catherine Mary Stewart, Adamant, and Michael Paré. Not to mention Julius Carey and Anthony James. People will know Anthony James as the assassin that Frank Drebin sticks a hairdryer into the mouth of in, I think, Naked Gun 2.
But you know, Julius Carey is the one and only King of Converse, Show Enough.
Show Enough, and Lord Bowler from Adventures of Briscoe County Jr.
Yes.
So, you know, there are movies out there that I think are probably worth digging into with the Paré from the eras of late 80s, early 90s, which is sort of where I want to cherry pick from. I will tell you right now that I have Into the Sun on VHS, which is not the Steven Seagal movie, which I think is also called Into the Sun. It is Anthony Michael Hall and Michael Paré starring movie about a fighter pilot that's basically Iron Eagle without Louis Gossett Jr. and the other guy in Iron Eagle.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you want to pick one of those right now, I'll tell you what my choice is. One of those, I'll show you mine. I'll show you yours. Thing, kind of deal. Yeah.
Oh, go on then. All right. What should we do? Let's go back. I want to do World Gone Wild. Let's do that. 1987, World Gone Wild. I'll try and find it somewhere. It's got Bruce Dern in it. It looks Mad Maxy enough to sort of pique my interest. So let's go World Gone Wild.
Okay, my choice, and I have to find it again because it's in this. John Saxon, biker, and leader of an albino biker gang. Fucking Hasselhoff wears a duster in this film, and he has a cougar for a pet, and he uses the cougar in his action scenes.
Yeah.
And where's this at? It's called The Final Alliance, 1990. Gonna go back to 1990 again.
The Final Alliance. Dude, I have this on VHS. You've literally picked a movie for the VHS segment that I actually have on VHS.
Yeah, because cool, man. A drifter and his pet puma stands up against a motorcycle gang in a small American town.
I am all over that shit.
This is available on Prime Video and Tubi for you guys to enjoy before we do the show.
Dude, I think we've picked another couple of winners. I really do think so. World Gone Wild and The Final Alliance coming to the Cinema Beef podcast very soon.
Also starring Bo Hopkins. Okay, so there's that. You know, that's no slouch. Yeah.
And Len Sparrowhawk. That's a real person, ladies and gents. Len Sparrowhawk. So that's The Final Alliance from 1990 and World Gone Wild from 1987. Final Alliance is available on Tubi, as well as me owning it on VHS. World Gone Wild, probably is going to be a YouTube watch.
I got you, man. Yeah, that's next show. I'm excited about it, man.
All right, man. Well, that's going to be our next show. I'm going to thank you ever so much for being on the After Movie Diner. Thanks ever so much, Gary.
Yeah, incredible, man. I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
I want to walk around the whole world, smile and shake shake hands with everyone that I find there. Dive into the oceans, the rivers and lakes. Climb the mountains, count the animals, and breathe fresh air. And also I just wanna do nothing. Why can't I just sit with very little to do? Peace and quiet, no list of things to accomplish. Why can't I just do nothing? Do nothing with you. Drive every back road in this country, eat at every diner, see the roadside attractions. I wanna learn what makes all of you tick, but my ambitions and my dreams outweigh my money and actions. And also I just wanna do nothing. People are awful, the traffic's a nightmare to get through. I got cozy seats, snacks, and movies at home. Why can't I just do nothing? Do nothing with you. And I don't think I have enough time left. And I'm sure that I wish I had more. And I'll get done what I get done and see whatever I see, and I'll be happy with that. What else is happiness for? What else is happiness for? All of the films I have listed. I want to read important books and take in all the great artworks. I want to write all the songs that I've yet to find words for. I want all of the friends and all the glorious perks. But also I just want to do nothing. You can all join me if that sounds good to you. Barely moving and eating all the food that you shouldn't. Just keep the noise down around me while I do nothing with you.